Welcome to EduTap and welcome to today's very important session. So from today onwards, your marathon sessions are starting for the NABARD Grade A 2025 Phase 2 examination, and today is your first marathon session, that is for your ESI Static. Okay, so today is your ESI Static Marathon session in which we are going to discuss 100 important MCQs that will be on the basis of the Phase 2 level, and the session will be taken by me and Jaskaran sir. So this is your ESI Static Marathon. Okay, so we will be discussing 100 MCQs, and through that we will be revising the important concepts of your ESI. So first of all, give me a thumbs up if I'm clearly audible and visible. And today is your marathon session for your ESI Static. So let's get started, and I hope you are well prepared. ESI Static is present in your phase 1 also and in your phase 2 also. So I hope you are well prepared, and we will be going in a rapid fire round manner. We will be going a little faster because we have already discussed the concepts. We have already revised the concepts in the phase 1 also. Okay, so let's get started. Let's see how many of you are able to answer the 100 MCQs. Okay, so let's get started. But before that, do subscribe to the YouTube channel of EduTap so that you continue getting the relevant videos, and do join our Telegram channel in which you will get the PDF of the session. Okay, so in the Telegram channel of EduTap, you will get the PDF of the session, and the link for the Telegram channel is provided in the description box below. So first of all, this is the schedule for your marathon series. From today onwards, your marathon sessions are starting. Today is your marathon session for ESI Static. Then on 18th, that is tomorrow, you have the marathon session for descriptive English. Then for ARD Static, ESI Current Affairs, Scheme Stab, ARD Current Affairs, and Report Stab. So you have the different marathon sessions, and I hope you will join all the marathon sessions so that you are able to focus on and you are able to revise and practice the MCQs. Okay. So let's get started with today's session with the first question. So the first question in front of you is this. So a paragraph is given to you, and on the basis of the paragraph, there will be 3 questions that you will have to answer. Okay. So gross aggregates, they overstate the productive capacity of an economy by ignoring the capital consumption during the production. So basically, there is the difference between the gross domestic product and net domestic product. And gross domestic product, it is said that the gross domestic product, they overstate the productive capacity. They have the higher value in comparison to the net domestic product. Why is it so? What is the factor that is leading to the gross aggregates being higher than the net aggregates? So if you know that how you can convert the net into gross, you will be easily able to answer this question. So what is the answer here? You have to convert the net into gross. Net into gross. What is the factor that overstates the gross aggregates? Is it the net factor income from abroad? Is it not the concept? The net factor income from abroad, it is the concept between the domestic and national. Net and gross. What is the concept related to net and gross? It is depreciation. It is the capital stock is depreciating rapidly. The capital stock. So basically the gross domestic product is equal to net domestic product plus depreciation. So if you want to convert the net into gross, we have to add depreciation. If the capital stock is depreciating rapidly, if there is huge depreciation, then the gross value will be overstated. The gross domestic product will be higher just because the depreciation is huge in the country. And is depreciation good? No, the depreciation is not good because there is very fast wear and tear of the machinery that is happening. That should not happen. Okay, so if there is very fast wear and tear of technology, if there is very fast wear and tear of machinery, the machinery is breaking down, we are replacing that machine. So this depreciation, it is overstating, it is boosting the value of the gross domestic product, which is not good. Okay, so capital stock depreciates rapidly. That's why the gross is higher than the net, and that's why the gross overstate the value. Got it? So the C is the answer here. Now remember that if you want to convert the net into gross, add the depreciation or the consumption of capital stock, it increases the value of the gross. It overstates because of the depreciation, because of the addition of depreciation, the gross value is overstated. Now, which fiscal instrument directly increases GDP at MP without raising the factor income. So which fiscal means which government instrument directly increases the GDP at MP without increasing the factor income. So if you see the GDP at market price and we have the factor income means factor cost. So that means let's say you have the GDP at factor cost. Now which fiscal instrument increases the GDP at MP? How the market price can increase, how this can increase without increasing the GDP at FC. So if you want to convert the factor cost into market price, what do? We add the, if we are going from factory to market, what value is added in the market price? If you are going from the factory to market, which value is added in the market price? So indirect tax, very good. Indirect tax is added in the market price. Okay, so remember that if the factor cost is same and the market price is increasing, okay, the GDP at MP is increasing while the GDP at FC is same. So that means the indirect taxes, because indirect taxes are included in the market price, they are added in the market price. Okay, so indirect taxes must be increasing. So indirect tax. So which government instrument directly increases the GDP at MP? Market price is taken at market. So market price is the price in the market, and in the market we have to pay the goods and services tax, we have to pay the indirect tax. So indirect tax is the fiscal instrument that directly increases the GDP at MP. Okay, this is the idea. So E is the answer here. Very good everyone. Now, so if you want to convert the factor cost to market price, if you want to go from factory to market, you have to add the indirect taxes and deduct the subsidies. So whenever you are going from the factory to market, remember that the indirect taxes are added, because indirect taxes have to be paid in the market, like GST has to be paid. Okay, now next is that a country with large factor income, the factor income inflow from abroad, the factor income from abroad is higher. A country with large factor income from abroad, we have higher factor income from abroad, but we are paying less factor income outflow. That means we are paying less factor income to abroad. This is most likely to show which of the following pattern. So if factor income from abroad is higher than the factor income to abroad, so net factor income from abroad will be negative or positive or zero. What will be the net factor income from abroad? Okay, and the GDP will be higher or the GNP will be higher. Think about it. If the factor income from abroad, if we are earning more from abroad in comparison to what we are paying, what is the outflow? We have more inflow in comparison to the outflow. That means the net factor income from abroad is positive, because we are having more, we are getting more than what we are paying. Okay, the factor income from abroad is more than what we are paying. So the inflow, the factor income from abroad is higher than the factor income to abroad. So the net amount, the net factor income from abroad is positive. It is positive. So either it is B or C. Okay. Now when net factor income from abroad is positive, that means gross national product must be higher, because gross national product is GDP, domestic, plus net factor income from abroad. This is your national. So net factor income from abroad is positive. So GNP must be higher than the GDP. So here the C is the answer. Very good, Lohita. C is the answer, correct. So this is the idea that if the inflow, if we are getting more than what we are paying, that means the net amount is positive. And if the net factor income from abroad is positive, that means the national is higher than the domestic. Okay. So here, like we have discussed, that in the domestic, if you add the net factor income from abroad, we can get the national. In the domestic, add the net factor income from abroad to get the national. So in the domestic, add the net factor income from abroad to get the national. Okay. Now, next is that national income can be estimated through the product method, income method, expenditure method. Which component appears only in the expenditure method for calculating the national income? So which of the following component it appears only in the expenditure method for calculating the national income? So try to answer this. So the expenditure method, through the expenditure method we can calculate GDP at MP. What is the formula for expenditure method? Consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus net exports. ठीक है, investment is also known as gross domestic capital formation. Investment is also known as gross capital formation. Investment is also known as total capital formation that is happening in the country. Okay, so here what is the answer? Which of the following is a component of expenditure method? So gross capital formation, the investment, that is the gross capital formation, this is a part or this is a component in the expenditure method. Compensation of employees, this is under the income method. The compensation, it comes under the income method, not expenditure. The rent, mixed income of self-employed, this comes under income method. What is your income method? All the income that is earned by the labor, that is the compensation of employees, that is the wages in kind and cash. Okay, land is earning rent, the capital is earning the interest, the entrepreneur is earning the profit, and if the people are self-employed, they are earning the mixed income. They are earning the mixed income. So this is your income method in which we add the wages, rent, interest, profit and mixed income. Okay, in the expenditure method, we calculate GDP at MP and we add the consumption plus investment. Investment is the gross capital formation. So this is the answer. D is the answer. Okay, chalo. So in the GDP at MP, through the expenditure method, we include the consumption expenditure, gross domestic capital formation, that is also known as investment, government expenditure and net export expenditure. So when we add the consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government expenditure and the net export, then we come to the GDP at MP through the expenditure method. Okay, investment is also known as gross domestic capital formation. Now, coming to the next question, try to answer this question. Consider the following statements with reference to the methods of measuring national income. So in the value added method, the value of intermediate good is excluded from the value of output. Is it so? From the value of output, do we deduct the intermediate consumption? Yes or no? Yes or no? From the intermediate consumption, from the intermediate goods, do we deduct? Like from the value of output, do we deduct the intermediate consumption in the value added method? So yes, what happens that under the value added method, the value of intermediate good, is deducted from value of output. So from the value of output, deduct the intermediate consumption to get the gross value added. Okay? So yes, in the value added method, from the value of output, we deduct the intermediate consumption. Now the income method measures the national income at factor cost by summing up all the factor payments, excluding the mixed income of self-employed. So in the income method, we do not exclude the mixed income of self-employed. We actually add the profits, we add the interest, we add the rent, we add the compensation of employees, we add the mixed income of self-employed. Okay, so we do not exclude, we actually add the mixed income of self-employed. So this is wrong. The expenditure method yields GDP at market price and includes net exports. So in the expenditure method, we get the net exports, we include the net exports. So yes, in the expenditure method, we include the net exports. So 1 and 3 were correct and that's why the answer was B and everyone. Okay, so Sonu has given the right answer. Very good. So 1 and 3 is the right answer. The second one was wrong. The second statement was wrong. Okay, so B is the right answer, 1 and 3 only. Chalo. So wages, profit, interest, rent plus mixed income of self-employed, this is your income method. So we add the mixed income. Consumption, investment, government expenditure plus net exports, this is your expenditure method that calculates GDP at MP. And value added method, here we calculate GVA at MP, gross value addition, by value of output minus intermediate consumption. So B was the answer. Now coming to the next question, an economy experiences a year in which the physical output of final goods and services remain unchanged. That means output is not changing. Output is not changing while the prices are increasing. The prices are increasing. The prices are increasing. Okay. So basically GDP deflator, we have to tell about the GDP deflator. GDP deflator is your nominal GDP divided by real GDP. Now in the nominal GDP, we take the current output and we multiply it with the current prices. In the real GDP, we take the current output and we multiply it with the base year prices. Now output, it is constant. The output is same while the current prices are increasing. So GDP deflator should be increasing or decreasing. The current prices are increasing. So the GDP deflator should Increase or decrease? GDP deflator is increasing. GDP deflator is increasing. So GDP deflator will increase, reflecting pure inflation. Why the GDP deflator is increasing? This is because of the inflation that is happening. This is because of the rise in prices that is happening with no real growth, with no increase in output. Got it? So B is the right answer here. So B is the right answer. GDP deflator will increase. So basically, when GDP deflator, remember, it is nominal GDP divided by real GDP. Real GDP is your output multiplied by the base year prices. Nominal GDP is output multiplied by current prices. Output is constant. Output is not changing. That means there is no real growth that is happening. There is no real growth. But the current prices are increasing. Okay, base year prices are constant. Current prices are increasing. So if the current prices are increasing, that means GDP deflator is increasing. GDP deflator will increase, reflecting pure inflation. Chalo. So GDP deflator is also known as implicit price deflator, implicit price deflator, or the price, it shows the price changes. Okay. Now, GDP deflator is nominal GDP of a year divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. This is the GDP deflator. It is also known as implicit price deflator, as it is a measure of inflation. That's why if GDP deflator is increasing, we say that it is a inflation. It is inflation that is happening. Now try to answer this question. Which of the following is the correct match between the sector and its description that you have to tell? So try to answer this question. Okay. So there are different sectors: primary sector, quaternary sector, quinary sector, tertiary sector, secondary sector. So there are different sectors. Now primary sector, it shows the activities related to knowledge creation, technological innovation, education and information services. No, not correct, right? Because primary sector is the sector that involves the economic activities related to the natural resources. Okay, so primary sector includes agriculture, livestock, fishery and such. So primary sector includes all the economic activities that are related to natural resources. Quaternary sector, it relates to the activities related to knowledge creation, research and development, innovation. Quinary sector, it involves such activities that are related to highest decision level of the decision making and the policy formulation, the top leadership roles. So quinary sector, it is the sector that includes the activities related to the highest level of decision making and the policy formulation and the top leadership sector. Tertiary sector, it talks about, or it deals with the activities related to the basic services related to production, distribution and consumption. Now secondary sector, it is the sector that includes the activities related to manufacturing, construction activities, converting raw materials into finished or semi-finished goods. So E is the right answer. Very good Nilesh. Correct. Very good Sonu. Very good Lohita. Harsh, Sejal, everyone has given the right answer. So very good everyone. You can see that E is the right answer here because this is the correct match. Okay. So this is the idea. Primary sector, it includes all the economic activities which are related to natural resources and the usage of natural resources. Secondary sector, it includes the economic activities in which there is manufacturing that is happening, construction that is happening, or processing of the raw materials into the semi-finished or finished goods. Tertiary sector, it includes all the economic activities that is related to production, consumption, distribution and the basic services like educational services, health facilities and such. Quaternary sector talks about the knowledge sector, innovation, research and development. Quinary sector deals with the top decision making body and the top highest level of decision making. So these are the sectors that are identified by the National Statistics Office and the diversification has been done. Primary sector includes agriculture, livestock, forestry, fishing, mining, quarrying. Secondary sector includes manufacturing, electricity, gas, water supply, construction. Tertiary sector includes all the services like the trade, hotels, education, hospital, healthcare services, defense services and such. Okay. Now coming to the next question, this is a paragraph that is given on poverty. Poverty is no longer viewed solely as lack of income but as a multifaceted phenomenon, encompasses deficiency in health, education, living standards and social inclusion. While absolute poverty focuses on survival thresholds, but there is multidimensional poverty that is more discussed now. So when assessing in a society where most individuals earn above the national poverty line, so most of the individuals, they are above the poverty line, but many still lack adequate access to sanitation facilities and healthcare facilities. So which conceptualization of poverty would provide the most comprehensive understanding? So basically it has been said that most of the people, they are living above the poverty line. So that means most of the people are not in the poverty, but the people, even if they are living above the poverty line, they are lacking the access to sanitation, they are lacking the access to healthcare facilities. So this kind of poverty, where the people, they might not be under the poverty line, but they are lacking the basic facilities. So this kind of poverty is absolute poverty, relative poverty, situational poverty, multidimensional poverty, or generational poverty. What kind of poverty is it? It is multidimensional poverty. Very good. Because we are not only seeing the income level, we are saying that, okay, even if the people have the income, they do not have the sanitation facilities, health facilities, let's say, they do not have the access to the assets or to the banking facilities and such. So this is multidimensional poverty, where we are not only seeing the poverty from the income or expenditure perspective, we are seeing the poverty from multiple dimensions. So this is the idea. Relative poverty is when we are comparing a part of the population with the rest of the population, that this part of the population does not have enough resources in comparison to the rest of the population. Absolute poverty is when we see that, okay, these are the number of people that are below the poverty line. So this shows the number of people that do not have the basic standard means. Okay. Situation poverty is because of a situation the people are in the poverty. Generation poverty, that because of the generations ahead, like there is generational wealth from generations ahead. Similarly, the generational poverty is the poverty that has been given from generations before. Okay. Now there is multidimensional poverty, in which we see the poverty from multiple dimensions: health, education, and living standards. Okay. Now, next is the Tendulkar Committee's methodology differed from previous approaches because of which of the following? What was the key characteristic that was very different in the Tendulkar Committee in comparison to the other committees? So one of the key difference was that the other committees, they followed the uniform reference period, in which the committee said that there is a 30-day survey period that will be taken. The 30-day reference period will be taken, in which the consumption expenditure will be seen, that the people are spending on what and how much they are spending. Are they spending more than the poverty line or less than the poverty line? But Tendulkar Committee said that rather than taking the uniform reference period, Tendulkar Committee took the mixed reference period. In the mixed reference period, there were two timelines that were taken, or two reference periods that were taken. 1 year timeline for the 5 products: cloth, footwear, health facilities, education facilities, durable goods. Okay. So in the mixed reference period, 1 year time period was taken for the non-frequent items that are not bought on the daily basis, regular basis, like the clothes, footwear, educational facilities, health facilities, and the durable goods. And 30-day time period was taken for the rest of the consumption expenditure. Okay, so this was the mixed reference period that was adopted by Tendulkar Committee. Other than this, a very different approach that was adopted by Tendulkar Committee was incorporating the private health and education expenditure. Because previous to the Tendulkar Committee, it was assumed that the government is providing the health facilities and the education facilities, and the people, they are not spending on the health facilities and education facilities. But the Tendulkar Committee said that no, the people do spend on the health facilities and education facilities, and that's why the health and education expenditure should also be taken into account in the consumption expenditure and in the poverty line measure. Okay? So B is the answer here. Very good, everyone. Chalo. So Vaikela Committee gave the poverty line on the basis of the minimum consumption expenditure that is required to meet the daily calorie requirement of 2100 calories in the urban area and 2400 calories in the rural area. And the minimum consumption expenditure was seen on the monthly basis, that on the monthly basis, this is the minimum consumption expenditure that is required to meet the daily calorie requirement of 2100 calories in urban area and 2400 calories in rural area. Lakdawala Committee agreed that yes, the consumption expenditure should be on the basis of the calorie requirement, but Lakdawala Committee said that there should be state-specific poverty lines, because in the different states, to meet the daily calorie requirement, there is different expenditure that the people might have to do because of the state price differentials, because of the interstate price differentials. The people might require to do different expenditure to meet the daily calorie requirement. Okay, so the Lakdwala committee said that there should be state specific poverty lines. Tendulkar committee said that we will follow the mixed reference period of 1 year for 5 known food items and 30 days for the rest of the items. We have to shift away from calorie consumption based, because right now we are focusing on calorie rather than nutrition. So we have to shift away from calorie consumption to nutritional consumption. Uniform line poverty line basket, that means there will be two different poverty lines that will be constructed, one for rural area, another for urban area, but the consumption basket should be same. That means we should be consuming the same in rural area and urban area, though because of the price differential, the expenditure might differ, but we should provide same basket of goods to rural area and urban area. The education, health, food, footwear, clothing is required in rural area as well as in urban area, but price differentials will be there. Incorporate the private expenditure on health and education, and committee computed new poverty lines for rural area and urban area based on the uniform poverty line basket of the goods. Now coming to the next question, try to answer this question, okay? So consider the following statements regarding the National Multidimensional Index in India and Global Multidimensional Index. So there is National Multidimensional Index, Poverty Index, and the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index. Now you have to tell me that which of the above statements are correct, is or are correct. So the National Multidimensional Poverty Index in India uses household microdata from National Family Health Survey to measure deprivation in health, education, and standard of living. So basically, if you want to see the Multidimensional Poverty Index, there are 3 dimensions: health, education, and standard of living. To collect the data regarding this, the National Family Health Survey data is used. Okay, so that is correct. The Global Multidimensional Poverty Index is released jointly by the UNDP and OPHI, whereas the National Multidimensional Poverty Index is released by NITI Aayog, that is National Institution for Transforming India. So this is also correct. Global MPI and National MPI, they consist of 3 dimensions: health, education, and standard of living. So this is correct. They have 10 indicators each. So the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index has 10 indicators, but the National Multidimensional Poverty Index has how many indicators? Can anyone tell me? Very good. The National Multidimensional Poverty Index has 12 indicators. So this is incorrect. The third one is incorrect. So B is the right answer, because 1 and 2 were the correct statements. Okay. So yes, so National Multidimensional Poverty Index, it is released by NITI Aayog in 2021. Multidimensional Poverty Index, it measures the simultaneous deprivation across the 3 dimensions: health, education, and standard of living, under which there are 12 indicators. Okay, the household data of all India National Family Health Survey is used to see the data for health, education, and standard of living. Now the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, it was launched in 2010 by the UNDP and OPHI. Okay. And here you can see that years of schooling, if we are talking about years of schooling, so no household member aged school entrance age plus 6 years or older has completed at least 6 years of schooling. So years of schooling, when we are talking about years of schooling, then the person should have at least completed 6 years of schooling. And child mortality, any child under the age of 18 years has died in the family in the 5-year period preceding the survey. So when the survey is happening, this is the data that is collected. Okay, and in the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, there are 10 indicators, not 12. There are only 10 indicators, not 12. So population in severe multidimensional poverty index, that is those with the deprivation score of 50% or more. So if a person has a deprivation score of 50% or more, that means the person is under the severe multidimensional poverty. Now there is another thing, that can anyone tell me what is the global poverty line that is constructed by the World Bank? As per the World Bank, what is the new global poverty line on the basis of per person per day? Is it 2.15, 2.75, $3, or $1.50, or $1.75? How many dollars is the global poverty line on per person per day? Per person per day. What is the global or international poverty line for per person per day? It is $3. Very good. $3 per person per day. It is the new international poverty line as per the World Bank. So now coming to the next question, a country's GDP increases due to higher mining output. So GDP remains a powerful indicator of economic activity. It was never designed to measure human well-being. So remember that GDP tells us about growth, that the GDP tells us that the production has increased. So real GDP, if it is increasing, that means the production has increased in the country. But can we say that well-being has increased? Can we say that inequality has decreased? Inequality has decreased. Can we say so? That the inequality has decreased, the well-being has improved. With more production, there might be more pollution that can be happening. There might be inequality that might be increasing. The rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer. It might be happening this, right? So GDP remains a powerful indicator of economic activity, where we can see that the real GDP is increasing, that means production is increasing in the country. But it was never designed to measure human well-being. The GDP only focuses on the market transactions and not on the non-market transactions. It does not talk about pollution, it does not about the resource depletion and such. So country's GDP, if it is increasing due to higher mining output, because of rapid mining that is happening. Aravali, like recently the Aravali is the hot topic. What is going to happen there? That mining can happen. So is it good for the country? Why there are so many of the retaliation that is happening against the usage of the mining, against the mining in the Aravali range? So the problem, you can understand that what is the problem? The country, if more mining happens, that means more production, that means more GDP. So what is the problem with more GDP? What is the problem with more production? What is the problem with more mining? If there is widespread usage of the input intensive agriculture, that means more heavy dosage of fertilizers and pesticides are being used to produce more. What is the problem here? The problem is negative environmental externalities. The environmental externalities, the environmental impact will be very, very bad, or it can lead to very bad impact on environment. So that is the idea that is not taken into account in GDP. So GDP has certain limitations. It does not take into account the non-market transactions. It does not take into account the environmental degradation. It does not take into account the resource depletion. Okay, so GDP has certain limitations. If there is higher mining that is happening, if there is widespread usage of input intensive agriculture with heavy doses of fertilizers, pesticides, it can lead to negative. Even if there is more production in the short run, even if there is more production, it leads to negative environmental externalities, negative environmental impact basically. Okay, so is the answer. Such kind of questions that are more like analytical base that you can expect in the exam. Why is economic development described as a multi-dimensional process? So growth is considered to be single dimension because growth, real GDP is increasing. That means production is increasing. That means growth is happening in the country. So we are focusing on production, while the development focuses on multiple dimensions. So why is an economic development described as multi-dimensional process? Because, okay, Sejal has given the answer. What about the others? Are we talking about multiple business cycles? Are we talking about boom and contraction in the economic development? No. Nominal and real variables. So in the growth also we have nominal GDP, real GDP. Economic development, how is it multidimensional? Because it talks about social factors, that inequality has to decrease. Inequality has to decrease. The literacy rates should be improving. The mortality rates should be decreasing. Okay. So it talks about the social factors like the gender equality, environmental factors. It talks about sustainable development also. The economic factors. It talks about the economic factors like the growth should improve. There should be increase in the productivity in the country. Okay, so economic development described as multidimensional process because it encompasses social, environmental and economic factors. It talks about the quality of life, and quality of life will improve if the people have better air to breathe in, better water to drink. Okay, so C is the answer. So growth is narrow concept as it focuses on production only, while the development is a broad concept that talks about growth and better standard of living. So development is a multidimensional concept that focuses on human development index, gender related index, gender equality, human poverty index and such. Now coming to the next question, which of the following scenarios best demonstrate why GDP growth may not improve quality of life? So in which of the following conditions the GDP growth may not improve quality of life? Try to think, try to read the question. If the per capita income is increasing with stable prices, if prices are stable, that can be better for the consumers. Expansion of healthcare services, it can also be good for the people. Growth driven by defense expenditure. So if there is growth that is happening because of defense expenditure, so you can understand that there is more production. There is more production for the defense equipments. Okay, is it improving the quality of life of the common people? Is it? So no. So C is the answer. Okay. So GDP growth. Why GDP growth, or in which of the following scenarios GDP growth may not improve quality of life? So in the case where the production is increasing because of, let's say, mining, because of, let's say, the defense equipments, the defense expenditure is increasing. So in this case the production is increasing. In this case the production is increasing, but even with the increase in production, the quality of life might not be improving. Okay, in the nearby areas where the mining is happening, there might be a lot of pollution, a lot of chemicals, a lot of particulate matter in the air that can harm the health of the people. Okay, so C is the answer. Now, capitalist, socialist, mixed economic systems answer the fundamental economic question of production distribution in different ways. So there is capitalist economic system, socialist economic system, mixed economic system. There are different economic systems, but they talk about production, distribution. Which of the following argument is most commonly advanced in favor of socialism? So which of the following argument is most commonly advanced that we should have socialism so that there can be what? Maximization of individual choices. So in socialism, is there individual choices that is maximized? So basically in the socialism, the government has the control over the resources, and the government decides that what should be produced, what has to be produced in what quantity, so that the government can promote the equalitarian society. And the government, it owns the resources, or we can say the government controls the resources, and the government curbs the private ownership. The government curbs the private ownership. So basically the individual choices are not maximized because the government is focusing on equalitarian society, and the government decides what should be produced and in what quantity, so the consumers do not decide that. So there is no maximization of individual choices. Laissez-faire economy, that means government should not intervene in the market, but in the socialism the government controls the resources, the government decides what to produce, how to produce, how much to produce. So government is intervening in the market, so there is no laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means market autonomy. The market is deciding, the consumers, the producers are deciding what to produce, how much to produce, but it does not happen in socialism. Higher productivity, faster economic growth, they are not the main key ideas of socialism. The socialism has the main idea, reduction of disparities. That means promotion of equalitarian society. Okay, so that is the main idea of socialism. So socialism, it is based on ownership of the resources by the government rather than individuals. The government, it controls the resources and it allocates the resources on the basis of need. It allocates the resources on the basis of need, that how much should be produced, what should be produced. It is decided by the government on the basis of the need of the people. The government decides what goods are to be produced and in what quantity, so that equalitarian society can be promoted. Okay. Next is that which of the following government interventions is most consistent with the philosophy of mixed economy? So government intervention in the mixed economy, there is government intervention that happens, but which of the following is most consistent with the mixed economy concept? So in the capitalist, there is laissez-faire that is followed, that is government should not intervene in the economic activities, the government should not intervene much in the market. Okay, and the private ownership, the private sector should be promoted. In the socialism, it is said that the government should have the control over the resources, the government should decide what to produce, how to produce, how much to produce, so that equalitarian society can be promoted. Now in between the capitalist and socialist, there is mixed economy that says that okay, the market should work smoothly, the market, the consumers and producers should decide that how much to be produced, what to be produced on the basis of the demand and supply forces, but the government do intervene to promote the welfare activities. Okay, so in the mixed economy, there are welfare activities that are undertaken by the government, but the government allows the private ownership. Okay, like in India also you can see that there is private ownership. There are Ambani family, there is Adani family, there is Tata Group and such. So private ownership is allowed, but the government also run welfare activities. So in the mixed economy, the C is the right answer. So in the mixed economy, this is the mixed of the socialism and capitalism. So market allocates resources based on the demand and the supply forces, but the government also intervenes to promote the welfare of the people. Okay. Now coming to the next question, try to answer this question, that which of the following related terms is the correct match with their correct definition. So the terms are given here: absolute poverty, relative poverty, headcount ratio poverty, gap, situational poverty, and the definitions are given here. So you have to match the two. So try to answer this. Let's see how many of you can answer. So first of all, absolute poverty, temporary arising due to adverse events. So temporary arising poverty, temporary poverty arising due to adverse events such as illness, job loss, or natural disasters. So when there is temporary poverty, that is because of situational. That is because of situation. So E ka 1. E ka 1. Okay. Now, so E ka 1. Now, proportion of population living below the poverty line. So proportion of population that is living below the poverty line is your headcount ratio. This shows the proportion of population that is living below the poverty line. Condition where individuals cannot meet basic minimum subsistence needs. So it is A ka 3. So A ka 3, C ka 2, and E ka 1. Poverty gap, it measure the average shortfall of the poor from the poverty line, So measure, it shows, the poverty gap shows the shortfall of the poor from the poverty line, that how much farther away the people are from the poverty line. So that is shown by the poverty gap. So D ka 4, and situational we have done. So relative poverty, it is defined in comparison to average living standards of society. So relative poverty is when we are comparing a part of the population with the rest of the population. So A is the right answer here. Yes. So absolute poverty, it shows the condition where individuals, they cannot meet the basic minimum subsistence needs. B ka 5, relative poverty, it is defined in comparison to the average living standards of the society. So a part of the population is compared to the rest of the population, and this part of the population is not able to have the average living standards of the society. Okay. C ka 2, that is proportion of population living below the poverty line, that is shown by headcount ratio. So it shows the proportion of population that is living below the poverty line. Okay. D ka 4, so poverty gap, it shows the measure of average shortfall of the poor from the poverty line. So this is the idea. So A is the answer. So headcount ratio is the proportion of the population that exists or lives below the line of poverty. Now, next is unemployment in India manifests in multiple visible, invisible forms shaped by structural characteristics of the developing economy. Which policy intervention is more suitable for addressing this structural unemployment? If you know about the structural unemployment, you will be easily able to answer this question. Which policy intervention is more suitable for addressing the structural unemployment? See, structural unemployment happens because of the mismatch between the skill. The skills that are required by the employer are different from the skills that the employees have. So the employees have the obsolete or older skills that are no longer required. So skill development and retraining programs should be done to address the problem of structural unemployment. So C is the answer. Okay. Next is, so let's go a little faster now so that we are able to complete the session within the time that is given. So we have to complete the session by 6 p.m. So let's go a little faster. Why is frictional unemployment generally not viewed as serious policy concern? So why is frictional unemployment generally not viewed as serious policy concern? It reflects involuntary job loss. Involuntarily, you have lost the job, you have been fired? No. It indicates labor market rigidity? No. It arises from normal job search and mobility. So you are just moving from one job to another. You have willingly left your job to search for another better opportunity. So C is the answer. Frictional unemployment is when a person has left their job to search for another job. So C is the answer here. Next is, in an economy where a large number of individuals are recorded as employed in agriculture, yet output remains unchanged even if there is reduction in labor. Even if labor is reduced, then also output is same. That means many of the people that were employed in agriculture, they were, what kind of unemployment was there? Cyclical unemployment, structural unemployment, seasonal unemployment, frictional unemployment, disguised unemployment. So disguised unemployment, okay? Even if the number of laborers are reduced, the output will remain the same. That means the higher number of labor are employed that are not adding anything to the production. Their additional productivity of labor is zero. Even if we reduce the labor, there is no change in output that is happening. So people were disguised unemployed before, okay? Now, next is the measurement of unemployment in India varies depending on reference periods and intensity of labor utilization. A declining unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is declining, accompanied by sharp fall. There is huge fall in labor force participation rate. Labor force participation rate shows us the percentage of labor force out of total population. So that means if there is sharp fall in labor force participation rate, that means less labor force, less people that are going into the labor force, and that's why there is less unemployment rate. So improvement in job quality, we cannot say so, because the unemployment rate is declining because of the sharp fall in labor force participation rate. So even without the improvement in job quality, it might be that withdrawal of workers, the workers have withdrawn from the labor force. The labor force has decreased. Unemployment rate is basically the unemployed people out of labor force. The percentage of unemployed people out of labor force. If the labor force participation rate is decreasing, that means labor force is decreasing. So if labor force is decreasing, the unemployment rate is going to, it shows that the unemployment rate is decreasing. Okay. So withdrawal of workers, labor force participation rate has dropped. The labor force is less now. So that's why there is withdrawal of workers from labor force. And this shows a declining unemployment rate. Now, so labor force participation rate is the percentage of the labor force in the population. Worker population ratio is the percentage of the employed people in the population. Unemployment rate is the percentage of the unemployed people in the labor force. Okay. Now, coming India's experience of jobless growth. So India has experienced the jobless growth, the service sector, jobless growth. So India is growing rapidly, but the job opportunities are not created as much. So this is one of the reason is service sector led growth model, while contributing significantly to GDP, has not been sufficiently labor intensive to absorb the labor from the agriculture sector. Why has the service sector not able to absorb the labor from the agriculture sector while it has contributed a lot in GDP? So which of the following can be one of the reasons? So try to answer this. Let's see how many of you are able to answer this. D is very good. It is largely, see, the service sector, it is largely capital and skill intensive. In the service sector, even if you are in the customer care service center or you are in the IT services, you require a lot of skills. Okay, and it is also capital intensive. Like every person that is working in the customer facing and in the IT sector, they require laptop, they require computer, they require the basic infrastructure. Okay, so the service sector is capital intensive and skill intensive. Okay, so a lot of labor cannot be absorbed from the informal sector, from the unskilled sector, from the agriculture sector. That is a problem. So D is the answer. Now, worker population ratio, key indicators include unemployment rate, labor force participation rate, worker population ratio. So now worker population ratio is defined as which of the following? So worker population ratio we have discussed. Worker population ratio is the workers, employed workers divided by the total population multiplied by 100. So worker population ratio shows the percentage of the employed people in the total population. So B is the answer here. B is the answer. It shows the employed workers in the total population. So B is the answer. Okay. Now, which measure records a person as unemployed if they had no gainful work even for 1 hour or any day of the week? So the reference period is 1 week. And we are saying that the person is unemployed for the whole of the week because the person had no job for even 1 day in the week. Which measure records a person as unemployed if they had no gainful work even for 1 hour on any day of the week? So basically unemployed for the whole week, which is the measure, weekly status. This is the weekly status. Okay, so current daily status, it sees the status on the daily basis. Usual status, it sees the status for a long period of time, for 1 year, for 365 days. Okay, and weekly status, it sees the status for the week, and if the person had got the work for even 1 day, for even 1 hour, the person is said to be employed for the whole of the week. And even if the person has not got work even for 1 day, even for 1 hour on any day, the person is said to be unemployed for the whole of the week. So the reference period is taken as 1 week. And if the person is employed for even 1 day, for even 1 hour, the person is said to be employed for the whole of the week. So this comes under weekly status. Okay. So usual status unemployment, it sees the chronic unemployment, the long-term unemployment, and the usual status unemployment, the reference period is 365 days. If the person had no gainful work for most part of the year, then the person is said to be unemployed. Weekly status unemployment, it sees the status of the unemployment for 1 week. If a person had job for 1 hour, for even 1 day, the person is said to be employed for the whole of the week. If the person had no work for even 1 day, for even 1 hour, the person is unemployed for the whole of the week. The current daily status unemployment, it considers the activity status of a person for each day of a preceding 7 days. Okay. Now, an unemployment trap arises when? So key indicators are these, and the unemployment trap highlights how social security measures, how the government benefits can sometimes discourage the labor participation. Let's say, like, I don't know how many of you have heard, but in Europe it was happening that the minimum wages were less than the unemployment benefits that the government was providing. So unemployment benefits were very lucrative. Because of the unemployment benefits being so lucrative and higher than the minimum wage, or even near to the minimum wage, so the people were not willing to work, because they knew that if they are working, they are only earning minimum wages. But if they don't work, without working, they will get the unemployment benefits. So sometimes that social security measures, the government benefits are so lucrative that it discourages the labor participation. So an unemployment trap arises when which of the following is happening? So if the unemployment benefits are very near to the minimum wages, then you will not want to work. Because without working, you can get the free money, the unemployment benefits. Okay. So basically, opportunity cost of working, the cost of working is higher than the benefits from being unemployed. So if you are working, you are only getting minimum wage by putting in your efforts, by putting in your time. So the cost of working, the cost of your time, the cost of your efforts, it is higher than the benefits that you are getting from being unemployed. Okay, so this is the unemployment trap. Unemployment trap highlights that how the social security measures, if they are very lucrative, they can sometimes discourage the labor participation. Now, before independence, several development plans were proposed, such as the Bombay Plan that was given by the industrialist, Gandhian Plan, People's Plan, Sarvodaya Plan. So M.N. Roy's People's Plan focused primarily on which of the following? Industrialization and heavy investment in public sector units, rural development through cottage industries, nationalization of agriculture and Marxist principles of socialism, promoting free trade and foreign investment, establishing autonomous regional council for economic planning. So if you know about M.N. Roy People Plan, then I hope you know that it is the People's Plan focused on nationalization of agriculture and Marxist principles of socialism. That means pure socialism should be followed, where the government is controlling all the resources, so that the government is focusing on allocating the resources to the need-based production, so that only those goods are being produced that is needed by the society, that is needed by the community, so that the equalitarian society, the equalitarian community can be promoted. Okay, and there is equalitarian society that is present. So this was what was promoted by People's Plan. Okay. So Bombay Plan, it was given by the industrialists. People's Plan was drafted by M.N. Roy. It gave greatest priority to agriculture, nationalization of all agriculture and production. So all agriculture production should be under the control of the government, so that the government decides what should be produced, how it should be produced, how much it should be produced, so that the government can allocate the resources on the basis of the need of the society. The Marxist socialism, that is the pure kind of socialism where the government controls the resources and the private ownership is not present, and the equalitarian society is promoted. So this kind of thing was promoted or was planned by People's Plan. So this is the idea. Now coming to the next question. To stabilize the economy, India approached the IMF and World Bank, agreeing to structure reforms under the new economic policy of 1991. Now, in the 1991 new economic policy reforms were largely triggered by which of the following? That why we required the new economic policy of 1991. Why it was required? Because of excessive industrial growth, because of complete privatization of agriculture, overemphasis on export that we were giving, or severe balance of payment crisis and high fiscal deficits, or because of transition from mixed economy to pure socialism. So which of the following triggered the 1991 new economic policy reforms? So it was severe balance of payment crisis. We were in the worst kind of balance of payment crisis. We did not have enough of the foreign exchange reserves to import the oil or to import the necessary raw material or to pay our interest rate after 2 to 3 weeks. So the foreign exchange reserves, they were not sufficient after 2 to 3 weeks. So the balance of payment crisis was there, as well as there was high fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit means the government deficit. The government fiscal deficit was very, very high. The government was spending. Deficit is when the government is spending, the government expenditure is way more than the receipts of the government. So fiscal deficit means that the total expenditure of the government is higher than the total receipts of the government, excluding borrowing. So fiscal deficit was very high. That means the government was having huge expenditure. The total expenditure of the government was very high in comparison to the total receipts, excluding borrowing. So if total expenditure is 200 crores, total receipt excluding borrowing is 150 crore. So fiscal deficit is of 50 crore. That can be covered only through the borrowings. Okay. So there was severe balance of payment crisis and high fiscal deficit that led to the new economic policy reforms. Foreign exchange reserves declined to a level that was not adequate to finance imports for more than 2 to 3 weeks. And we did not have sufficient of the foreign exchange reserves to pay the interest for the previous borrowings that we had done. So this was the problem. And the government expenditure was way higher than the receipts of the government. So there was high fiscal deficit. And the balance of payment crisis was coming, as we did not have enough of the foreign exchange reserves. Now, devaluation of the Indian rupee. In the 1991, there was the devaluation of Indian rupee that was done. So which of the following was the aim for devaluation of rupee? So if the rupee was devalued, what was the main aim for the devaluation of the Indian rupee? Devaluation of Indian rupee means decreasing the value of rupee. Before, let's say we were giving 20 rupees to get $1. Now we have to give 30 rupees to get $1. So the value of rupees have decreased, and we have to give more rupees to get $1. So if the rupee has become cheaper, it has become weaker for the foreign nationals. So if the rupee is weak, if the rupee is cheap, that means the Indian products. If the rupee is cheaper for the foreign nationals, that means Indian products are cheaper for the foreign nationals. If the Indian products are cheaper for the foreign people, if the Indian products are cheaper for the foreign nationals, so they will purchase more of our products. That will improve the export competitiveness, and if we are exporting more, we will earn more foreign exchange. There will be more foreign exchange inflow that will happen. Okay. So yes, C is the answer. Very good, everyone. So whenever there is depreciation, see, in flexible exchange rate system, we call it depreciation or appreciation. Okay. When the rupee value is decreasing, we call it depreciation. When the rupee value is increasing, we call it appreciation. In the fixed exchange rate system, where the government was deciding the value of rupees against the foreign currency, the devaluation term is used when the rupee value is decreased. The revaluation is the term that is used when the rupee value is increasing. So in the case of depreciation or devaluation, it is the gain for the exporters. So when there is depreciation or devaluation, then it is gain for the exporters, loss for the importers. When there is appreciation or revaluation that is happening of rupee, when the rupee is getting stronger, it is loss for the exporters, gain for the importers. Okay. So whenever there is appreciation or revaluation, whenever the rupee is getting stronger, loss for the exporters, gain for the importers. Whenever depreciation or devaluation, that is rupee is getting weaker, gain for the exporters, loss for the importers. Now, NITI Aayog replaced the Planning Commission in 2015. One of the primary objective of NITI Aayog is which of the following? So NITI Aayog do the fund allocation, it prepares the 5-year plans, it fosters the cooperative federalism, it provides single national development plan disregarding the regional differences, it focuses on privatization of public sector units, which is the focus area of the NITI Aayog. NITI Aayog, it fosters the cooperative federalism. It fosters the cooperative federalism. That is, it fostered the cooperation between the central government and the state government. Okay, and in the NITI Aayog, there is a governing council that consists of chief ministers of all the states and lieutenant governors of all the union territories. So you can understand that the NITI Aayog, it promotes, it fosters the cooperative federalism. Okay, the cooperation between the different government entities. So the Prime Minister is the chairperson of the NITI Aayog. The governing council, comprising of chief ministers of all the states and lieutenant governors of union territories, are present in the governing council. There is also a regional council. Okay, to foster the cooperative federalism, this is one of the major objective of NITI Aayog. NITI Aayog has no power to allocate the funds. NITI Aayog has no power to make any plan, the 5-year plans and such. It cannot be made by the NITI Aayog. The concept of rolling plans introduced in India during 1978 to 1980 by the Janata Party was primarily aimed at which of the following? What is the concept of rolling plan basically? If you know the rolling plan, if you know the concept behind the rolling plan, you will be able to answer. So providing flexibility in planning by integrating annual 3 to 5 year and 10 to 20 year perspective plan. So every year 3 plans are made. One is the annual plan, one is the plan for 3 to 5 years, and one is the plan for 10 to 20 years. Okay, so this is the idea behind the rolling plan. Next, India's early planning phase focused on rebuilding a war-ravaged and partition-affected economy. The first plan emphasized agriculture, rehabilitation, price stability under which of the growth model or which of the framework? So the first 5-year plan was based on which model or which framework? The first 5-year plan was based on Lewis dual sector model, Soro neoclassical growth model, Rostow's stages of growth theory, Harrod-Domer growth framework, or Mahalanobis two-sector model. So basically the first 5-year plan was based on, yes, very good, Harrod-Domer growth framework. Okay, so the first 5-year plan was based on Harrod-Domer growth model, and it focused on agriculture, price stability, power and transport. Second 5-year plan focused on Mahalanobis plan and the rapid industrialization. Now, India's initial 5-year plans were crafted in the backdrop of the post-independence challenges. The third plan failure to achieve its growth targets can primarily be attributed to which of the following? So the third plan failed. Why? What was the reason of the fail of the third 5-year plan? So what was the reason that the third 5-year plan failed? Misallocation of industrial resources, external conflicts with China, Pakistan and severe droughts, excessive focus on cottage industries, implementation of family planning, complete neglect of energy and transport infrastructure. So what? Yes, very good. External conflicts. So in the third 5-year plan, during the third 5-year plan in the 1962, there was Chinese aggression. In the 1965, there was the Indo-Pak war, and severe droughts were also coming during the third 5-year plan. So external conflicts and the severe droughts, they led to the failure of the third 5-year plan. Okay, so third 5-year plan, it failed. It was a thorough failure because of the Chinese aggression and Indo-Pak war, and severe droughts were also present in India during this third 5-year plan. So it led to the failure of third 5-year plan. Now the seventh plan further consolidated the growth momentum, and it was said in the seventh plan, we came out of the Hindu rate of growth. The term Hindu rate of growth refers to which of the following? The term Hindu rate of growth refers to high population growth, stagnant agricultural productivity, long-term GDP growth, low long-term GDP growth, religious constraints, colonial trade patterns. So yes, Hindu rate of growth means that it was said that India is stuck in the Hindu rate of growth. That means India is stuck at the low rate of growth. So C is the answer. Okay. And we were not able to come out of the 5% of the growth rate, but in the 7th 5-year plan, we achieved the growth rate of 6%. That's why it was said that India broke the Hindu rate of growth. That means we have broken the stagnant or the stagnation. That means we have broken the 5% of the growth rate and we have come to the 6% of growth rate. So we have come out of the Hindu rate of growth by achieving the 6% of the growth rate. Now, this is the question. You have to tell that what is the balance of trade situation. The balance of trade situation is surplus or deficit, Is it the surplus of 50 billion? It is the surplus of 20 billion. It is the deficit of 50 billion. It is the deficit of 20 billion. So what is the balance of trade situation that you have to tell me? So try to answer this. I'm giving you some time. So think about it and try to answer. Balance of trade is what? See, in the balance of payment, there is current account, there is capital account. In the current account, there is trade in goods, there is trade in services, and there is transfer payment. Okay. Now, trade in goods is called balance of trade. So, trade in good is what? Trade in good is export of goods and import of goods. Now, we are getting 180 billion, we are paying 230 billion. So, we are getting less than what we are paying. So, that means we have a deficit of 50 billion. We have a deficit of 50 billion. Balance of trade is trade in goods. Balance of trade is trade in goods. That means we only have to see the trade in goods. That's it. We don't have to see any other data. So here the answer is D. That is deficit. We have the deficit of $50 billion because we are getting less than what we are paying for the balance of trade. It is in deficit of $50 billion. Okay. So trade in goods is also called visible trade. It is also called balance of trade. Remember this very clearly. Trade in goods is called balance of trade. Now, which statement correctly differentiates between balance of trade from the balance of invisibles within the current account framework? So I have told you that in the current account, there is trade in goods, there is trade in services, and there is transfer payment. Okay. Now the trade in good is also known as balance of trade. While the trade in services and transfer payments, they are collectively called invisibles or balance of invisibles. So balance of trade includes trade in goods, while the balance of invisibles captures the trade in services and transfer payments. So E is the right answer here. In the current account, the trade in good is the visible trade or balance of trade. Trade in services and transfer payment, they are collectively the balance of invisibles, or they are invisibles. Okay. So E is the answer here. Now, which of the following accurately distinguishes FDI, the foreign direct investment, from foreign portfolio investment in terms of BOP stability, in terms of balance of payment stability, and long-term economic impact? So which of the following distinguishes between FDI and FPI? So in the current account, we have trade in goods, trade in services, and transfer payment. In the capital account, we take into account the investment that is happening from outside, the investment that we are getting from outside, or the investment that we are doing outside. So investment can be in the form of FDI or FPI. Foreign direct investment, that is, there is the establishment of branches, there is the establishment of subsidiaries, there are the establishment of units that is happening in India. FPI means that there is the investment in the financial market, in the bonds, in the securities, in the debentures and such. Okay, so capital account, it includes investment, borrowings, external assistance and such. So now FDI and FPI, what is the difference? Okay, I'm getting the answer C. Very good. FDI represents stable, long-term investment contributing to productive capacity, because if direct investment is happening, that means it is a long-term investment, because the foreign entities, they are opening their subsidiaries in our countries, they are opening their branches in our country, or they are investing in the Indian company in a huge amount in the shares of the Indian company. So basically FDI, it includes the branches. The foreign companies are opening their branches in our country. They are opening their subsidiary. They are opening their unit. They are opening their factory in our country. That requires heavy investment and long-term investment. Even if the foreign company is buying the shares of the Indian company, that is 10% or more than 10%, this is also considered the foreign direct investment, because a huge investment has been done with the aim to earn the profit from the Indian company, from the functioning of the Indian company in the long term. So FDI, it is the direct investment, long-term investment that is stable, that do not fluctuate much. Okay, it contribute to the productive capacity. FPI, portfolio investment, it is prone to exit during market volatility. As soon as there is there is the information that okay, the dollars are rising, so investors might invest more in dollars, or if there is market volatility, the investors might be afraid, they might start taking out their money from the financial market, from the bonds, debentures and such. So portfolio investment is more volatile. Okay, direct investment is stable. So C is the correct answer. Now, maintaining equilibrium often requires financing current account deficits. So in the current account, there is in the balance of payment, there is current account and capital account. Current account, trade in goods, trade in services, transfer payment. Capital account, there is investment, borrowing, and there is investment, borrowing, and external assistance. Investment, external borrowing, and external assistance. Okay, a country using foreign exchange reserves to meet import payments during a deficit. So let's say balance of payment is in deficit, and for the import payments, we have to use the foreign exchange reserves. So to cover the balance of payment, deficit, if we are using the foreign exchange reserves, this comes under autonomous transaction, portfolio investment, accommodating transactions, net factor income receipts, unilateral transfer. So this comes under accommodating transactions. Accommodating transactions are those transactions that are undertaken to cover the deficit or surplus in the balance of payment. So if the balance of payment is in deficit of $10 billion, foreign exchange reserves will be used worth $10 billion so that the overall balance of payment is covered, it is stable, it is balanced out. Okay, so if the balance of payment is in deficit or it is in surplus, the foreign exchange reserves are used to cover the situation of the balance of payment, deficit or surplus, and to make the balance of payment overall balanced out. If the foreign exchange reserves, if the reserve sale is not sufficient, if the reserves are not sufficient, then the borrowing can happen from IMF or World Bank to cover the situation of deficit or surplus. This is known as accommodating transactions that cover the deficit or surplus in the balance of payment. Okay, so accommodating items, they are also known as below the line items, and they cover the deficit or surplus. Autonomous items are also known as above the line items. That is done only to get the majorly to get the profit or to attain the self motive. Okay, autonomous transactions like the trade in goods, trade in services, this is above the line transaction that is done to gain the profit. Chalo, now coming to the next question. In a foreign exchange market operating under flexible exchange rate regime, if there is increase in domestic demand for imported goods, that means we are importing more and there is more demand for dollars to import. There is more demand for dollars while the inflow is less, while we are getting less of the dollars. We are demanding more dollars for our imports. We are demanding more dollars for our imports while the supply of dollars is less. What will happen? Read the question carefully and try to answer this. So in a foreign exchange rate, in the foreign exchange market operating under a flexible exchange rate system where the value of the rupee can change in terms of the other countries, a sustained increase in domestic demand for imported goods. We are demanding more of the imported goods, so we are demanding more of dollars to import. While we, without any immediate compensating inflows, that means we do not have enough supply of dollars, we do not have enough inflows. This is most likely to lead which of the following outcome? If the demand for dollar is increasing, that means the price of dollar, the value of dollar is increasing against rupees. That means dollar is appreciating against rupees and the rupee is depreciating against dollars. So what is happening? What is the answer? Very good, Nilesh, correct. Depreciation of domestic currency. Domestic currency is depreciating. The rupee is depreciating against dollars. This is the idea, okay? So there is depreciation of rupees. That means rupee is getting weaker. If we demand more dollars and we have less supply of dollars, the value of dollars increase, the price of dollars increase, the dollar becomes stronger and rupee becomes weaker, so rupee depreciate. Now coming to the next question, that in the context of demand and supply of foreign exchange, a rise in the domestic price level. Think about it. Okay, this is the question that you have to use your logical reasoning. So if the domestic price level is increasing, the prices are increasing in our country for the goods and services. Relative to foreign price level, in comparison to the foreign price level, the foreign price level is not increasing. So goods and services are more expensive in our country in comparison to the foreign. Now this will lead to which of the following? Think about it. If the prices are increasing in our country, the prices of the goods and services is increasing in our country while the foreign price level is not changing. So this will lead to increased foreign demand of domestic goods. If the price of our goods is increasing, will the goods be demanded more? I don't think so. If the prices are increasing, the demand should reduce. Reduced imports. If the foreign price level is same and the price in our country is increasing, will we decrease our imports? No, because the foreign prices have not changed. So why we will decrease the imports? No. Reduced export competitiveness. Yes, this will happen. If the prices of our goods and services are increasing, we will be able to do less exports. The export competitiveness will reduce. So C is the right answer. Got it? C is the right answer. Which characteristic most fundamentally distinguishes a hard currency from a soft currency? I hope you know about the hard currency. Hard currency is the currency like dollars, euro that is internationally used and it is trusted a lot. While the soft currency is the currency like the Indian rupee and such currencies that are not as much used at the international level to maintain the reserves and such. So hard currencies, they are also kept as reserves, like we use dollars, we use euro, we use the pound sterling to keep as reserves, while soft currencies are not used for reserves. So what is the fundamental distinguishing factor in between the hard currency and soft currency? The hard currency, it is liquid and it is globally accepted. So B is the right answer. Okay. So hard currency, it is the hard currency, it has the highest weight. It is trusted at the international level. It is very liquid also. It is used a lot. Soft currency, it is hypersensitive. It is quite volatile. Okay, and such. Now, India's cautious approach in rupee convertibility reflects. So we have partial convertibility in rupee. In the current account, for the current account transactions, we have full convertibility, while for the capital account transactions, we still have partial convertibility. So current account convertibility primarily facilitates which of the following transactions? So in the current account convertibility, it primarily facilitates which of the following transactions? So current account convertibility, we have trade in goods, we have trade in services, transfer payment. So foreign equity, no, it comes under capital account. The foreign investment, it comes under capital account. Debt, it comes under capital account. Borrowing, investment, it comes under capital account. Real estate, it comes under capital account. Speculative capital flows comes under capital account, the investment. Trade in goods and services, it comes under current account. So current account convertibility focuses on trade in goods and services. For the trade in goods and services, the rupee can be converted easily into dollars and such. Okay, so this is the idea. Now, coming to the next question. Now the World Bank Group represents a modular institutional design. In the World Bank Group, there are 5 institutions, okay, that are doing the different functions, and rather than adopting a one-size-fit-all approach, the group differentiates between sovereign lending, concessional finance and such. So the IFC, the International Finance Corporation role in development differs fundamentally from IBRD lending because IFC primarily focuses on which of the following? So IFC is different from IBRD. How is it so? Because IFC focuses on investment in the private enterprises. So International Finance Corporation, it focuses on the growth of the private enterprises in the different countries. Okay, so B is the answer. Yes, very good. So basically, World Bank was established in 1944 as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development to rebuild the Europe and Japan after World War II. Its official name was IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It started operations in 1946. IBRD, it lends to low and middle income countries, but that they are credit-worthy countries. The IFC, it lends to the private sector and it focuses on the growth of the private sector. Now the ICSID is the International Center for Settlement of Investment Dispute. So it primarily contributes to the international investment climate lies in its ability to. So ICSID's primary contribution to the international investment climate lies in its ability to which of the following? What is the basic function of the ICSID that you have to tell? It provides capital guarantees, it enforces the trade sanctions, it resolves the investor state disputes, finance infrastructure projects, it regulates the exchange controls. Yes, very good. It resolves the investor state disputes. So if there are any dispute between the investors, between the foreign companies and the government, so those disputes are handled by the ICSID. So it is the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. So if there is any dispute between the investor and the country, that is handled by the ICSID. Okay. Now next is, so basically ICSID It helps private investors and foreign countries work out differences when they don't agree. Which of the following best captures the rationale for the creation of IDA when we already had IBRD? Now IBRD, now it is known as World Bank, and it provides the loans, it provides the credit to the poor but credit-worthy countries. So why was IDA made? Why was there a requirement for the International Development Association when we already had the IBRD? Which was providing the loan, which was providing the credit to the poor countries. So IDA was constituted, or IDA was created to extend concessional finance or to provide grants to the poorest of the economies, to the poorest of the countries. Okay, so this is the right answer. And IDA works in close cooperation with the IBRD. Okay, now coming to the next question. So in the context of SDRs, the special drawing rights that was created by IMF in 1969, which of the following most accurately reflects the economic rationale and contemporary relevance of SDRs? SDR function as legal tender. Is it a legal tender like the rupee, like the dollar, which are the legal tender which are backed by the government? SDRs replace national currencies. Can SDR replace the national currencies? SDRs serve as supplementary reserve asset, enabling members to meet balance of payment needs. SDRs are primarily used by commercial banks for private international lending and meeting their financial needs. SDRs have lost all relevance since the adoption of the floating exchange rate regime. So no. So C is the right answer. SDRs serve as the supplementary international reserve asset. And in the foreign exchange reserves, India holds the foreign currency, India holds gold, as well as SDRs are also part of the foreign exchange reserves. So SDRs, they are the supplementary international reserve asset that helps the country to maintain their reserves. Okay, so as this is C is the answer. So SDR is an international reserve asset. Now the value of SDR depends upon the value of 5 currencies. The weight and the currencies on which the SDR depends upon, it is reviewed every 5 years. It is reviewed every 5 years. Okay, so fixed number of units of currency for a 5-year period. So basically in every 5 years there is the review that happens of the currency. Now, which of the following statements is incorrect regarding the IMF? So IMF was founded by 44 member countries that sought to build a framework for economic cooperation. So yes, in the Bretton Woods conference there were 44 allied member countries that came together to build, to focus on building a framework for economic cooperation between the countries. This seems correct. Board of Governors is the highest decision-making body of the IMF. Is it so? Correct. Consist, and the Board of Governors, it consists of one governor and one alternate governor from each member country. Correct. IMF has 3 critical missions: furthering international monetary cooperation, encouraging the expansion of trade and economic growth, and discouraging policies that would harm prosperity. So this also seems correct. The governor is appointed by the member country and is usually the Prime Minister or the Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs. Is it so? Who is the governor that is appointed by the member country? So governor is usually the finance minister. So in the IMF, the governor that is appointed is the finance minister. So from our country, in the IMF, in the Board of Governors, the governor from our country is the Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, the finance minister, and the alternate governor is the governor of the Reserve Bank of India, that is Sanjay Malhotra. Yes. Okay. Now the executive board manages day-to-day IMF functions while the Board of Governors meets once a year. This is also correct. So all the other statements are correct. Only the D1 was wrong because the governor is appointed by the member country and is usually the finance minister or the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Yes. So IMF is governed by and accountable to 191 member countries. IMF was founded by 44 member countries that sought to build a framework for economic cooperation. At the top of the IMF organizational structure is the Board of Governors that consists of one governor and one alternate governor. The governor is usually the Minister of Finance or governor of the central bank. The executive board, it meets on the daily basis or it meets to maintain the day-to-day work. Okay. So the executive board, it meets to maintain the day-to-day work. So the day-to-day work of the IMF is overseen by the 25-member executive board, which represents the entire membership. Managing director is the head of the IMF staff and the chair of the executive board. Okay. Now, which of the following best explains why WTO is often described as a rules rules-based system. So WTO is often described as a rules-based system. Why is it so? Why is it a rule-based system? See, first of all, rules means nothing else. It means agreements. Because in the WTO, the rules, they are basically the agreements that have been signed. So rules are negotiated agreements with binding commitments. So WTO provides a platform, it provides a forum for the different countries to come together to negotiate the agreements, to negotiate. So rules are negotiated agreements with binding commitments. Okay, so this is the idea. Remember this. So whenever it is said that the WTO is the rules-based system, it basically means that agreements have been signed, and these agreements, they have become rules because the agreements, they have binding commitments. Okay. So the function of, first of all, WTO location is in Geneva, Switzerland. It was established on 1st January 1995. The GATT is the predecessor, the General Agreements on Tariff and Trade. It is the predecessor of WTO, and the last round of GATT, that was the Uruguay round, laid the foundation of WTO. The WTO, it provides the trade. It provides the forum, it provides the platform for the trade negotiations between the countries, and the WTO also administers the WTO trade agreements. It handles the trade disputes between the countries, and it monitors. The WTO has the right to review the trade policies. The WTO has the right to review the trade policies of the member countries and to provide the constructive feedback. The technical assistance and training is provided to the developing countries. So slowly and slowly, the developing countries can trade more. They can open up their markets. The WTO General Council reappoints the Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is now again the Director General of the WTO. Her tenure has been extended, and for the second time she has become the Director General of the WTO. She is the first woman and the first African to serve as Director General. Her term of office was expiring in 2025, but it has been extended for another 4 years. Okay. Now, the legal foundation of the WTO system rests on which of the following? So the legal foundation of the WTO system rests on the Tokyo Round, Bretton Woods Agreement, Doha Development Agenda, Marrakesh Agreement, and UN Charter. So usually whenever we talk about the WTO, we talk about the Uruguay Round. But Uruguay Round is nearly or very closely linked with which of the following? So legal foundation of the WTO system rests on Marrakesh Agreement. Yes, very good. It was Marrakesh Agreement. Why is it so? So basically, see, the negotiations under the Uruguay Round. So Uruguay Round laid the foundation. Uruguay Round laid the foundation of WTO. But Uruguay Round is a round where the negotiations are happening. Now these negotiations were concluded on 15th December 1993, and they were formally signed in April 1994 at Marrakesh, Morocco, and that's why it came to be known as Marrakesh Agreement. So Uruguay Round negotiations, they led to the Marrakesh Agreement, and the Marrakesh Agreement is the formal, it is the legal foundation. The Marrakesh Agreement is the legal foundation of the WTO system. So Uruguay Round negotiations, these were the negotiations which were formally signed in Marrakesh and came to be known as the Marrakesh Agreement, which laid the legal foundation of the WTO system. Okay, so if Uruguay Round is coming, that is fine. If Marrakesh Agreement is coming, that can be answered. Okay. Chalo. Now TRIPS is distinct. It is different from other WTO agreements primarily because which of the following? So TRIPS is your trade related aspect of the intellectual property rights. Okay, so basically TRIPS is the trade related aspect of the intellectual property rights. So this is different from the other WTO agreements primarily because the TRIPS focuses on intellectual property. In the name itself, intellectual property is there, na? So TRIPS sets standards for the intellectual property and the trade in the intellectual property. So the goods, the GATT there's a general agreement on tariffs and trade, which focuses on trade in goods. Then there is GATS that focuses on the trade in services. Then there is TRIPS, the trade related aspect of the intellectual property rights that focuses on intellectual property, copyright, patent, trademarks and such. There is also agreement on the dispute settlement and the procedure that has been laid in this agreement, that how the dispute will be settled between the member countries. There is also the trade policy review mechanism in which the WTO has the right to review the trade policies of the member countries, okay, and provide the constructive feedback to the member countries. Chalo. Agricultural trade poses unique challenges due to food security concerns, livelihood dependence, government intervention. Which category of agriculture subsidy is considered minimally trade distorting under the WTO rules? So which of these subsidies is considered minimally trade distorting under WTO rules? So in the agreement on agriculture, the agreement on agriculture were signed. Here it is, yes. So the implementation of agriculture on agreement started with effect from 1st January 1995. So in the WTO agreement on agriculture was one of the many agreements which were negotiated during the Uruguay round. So agreement on agriculture, it is important. In the agreement on agriculture, the subsidies that is given in agriculture segment, they are divided into green box subsidy, blue box subsidy and amber box subsidy. Green box subsidies are considered the most safe subsidies, we can say, the minimally least trade distorting subsidies. So green box subsidies are the least trade distorting subsidies. Okay, green box subsidies are the least trade distorting subsidies. They don't distort the free trade, or they don't distort the trade, or they have the minimal distortion in the trade. How is it so? Like the income support that is given to the farmers. If the farmers are given rupees 6,000 per year, is it trade distorting? Is it distorting any kind of trade? Is it distorting the quantity of production? Is it distorting the prices in the market? No, it is the income support that is given to the farmers. Okay, it is the income support that is given to the farmers. The crop insurance, is it distorting the trade? No, it is not distorting the trade. It is not distorting the price or the quantity that is going to the market, right? So crop insurance, like the Fasal Bima Yojana, it is just protecting the farmers. It is just protecting the farmers. So such kind of subsidies, they are considered the green box subsidies that do not distort the price or the quantity in the market. Blue box subsidies, they are allowed. They are also allowed subsidies. If there is overproduction, let's say in India there is overproduction, or in China there is overproduction of corn. So the government, the Chinese government, can give the farmers blue box subsidy to restrict the production of corn, to decrease the yield of corn, so that the overproduction can stop. So the blue box subsidies, you can understand, they are decreasing the quantity of a product. They are decreasing the quantity of a product, they are decreasing the overproduction, and they are decreasing the production of corn. So they are trade distorting subsidies because they are distorting the quantity that is being produced in the market. But these blue box subsidies are allowed because they stop overproduction. Okay. Now amber box subsidies, these are considered the most trade distorting subsidies. And it is said that 10% of amber box subsidies are allowed for the developing nations. There can be some exceptions also, but 10% of amber box subsidies are allowed for the developing nations, and 5% of amber box subsidies are allowed for the developed nations. 10% of amber box subsidies, so 10% of total agricultural production value. So if total agricultural production value is 100 crore, so 10% of that, that is 10 crore, is allowed for the developing nations as amber box subsidy, which is trade distorting, like the minimum support price, or which is trade distorting, which is changing the price in the international market, that is changing the price, okay, in the market. Or the fertilizer subsidies or pesticide subsidies that are provided, so that's also changed the price of the product. So these kind of subsidies, they come under amber box subsidies. 10% of the amber box subsidies, 10% of the total agricultural produce value. In the developing nation, this much of amber box subsidies are allowed by the developing nation, and 5% of the total agricultural produce value, this much is allowed by the developed nations. Now these are the allowed amber box subsidies. These are known as de minimis. De minimis is the amber box subsidy that is allowed. 10% of the total agricultural produce value for the developing nations, 5% of the total agricultural produce value that is in the developed nation. So these are the allowed amber box subsidy. But if more than 10% of the subsidy is given under the amber box subsidy, so that has to be reduced. So the aggregate measure of support is the extra amber box subsidies that are given, that has to be reduced. So green box subsidies are least trade distorting, blue box subsidies are trade distorting, but they are allowed. because they stop the overproduction, they reduce the overproduction. Ember-box subsidies are allowed till a limit. They are known as de minimis. If more than that ember-box subsidies are given, that has to be stopped. So more ember-box subsidies are known as aggregate measure of support. Okay. Now coming to the next question. Which of the following best explains the principle of national treatment? So there are 5 principles under the WTO. For the trade, there are 5 principles. Okay. Now, which of the following best explains the principle of national treatment under the WTO agreement? Imported goods must receive identical treatment at the border. No. Countries make binding commitment not to raise the trade barriers. No, it does not come under national treatment. Domestic and foreign goods must face equal treatment after import. So once the foreign goods have entered the domestic market, then they should be treated equally as the domestic good. This is the idea of the national treatment. Okay, this is the idea of the national treatment. So most favored nation means if a nation is getting a favorable condition by a WTO member country, the same favorable condition has to be provided to the other member nations also. The exception is the free trade agreement, regional trade agreements and such. If these agreements have happened, that is fine. If these agreements have not happened and then you are providing a favorable treatment to another member country, so you have to provide the same favorable treatment to all the WTO members. Okay, national treatment is once the foreign good has entered the domestic market, it should be treated equally as the domestic good. Fair trade, reduce the barriers, reduce the trade restrictions. Predictability means countries make binding commitment not to increase the trade barriers. Promoting fair competition, decrease the discrimination, non-discrimination should be there, and prevent the practices like unfair subsidies or dumping and such. Okay, so these are principles of the trading system. Preferential treatment must be extended to developing countries. This does not come under national treatment. Okay, this does not come under national treatment. WTO do provide the preferential treatment to the developing countries because the training, the help is provided to the developing country. But here we are talking about national treatment. Here we are talking about national treatment, which states that once the foreign goods has entered a market, they must be treated the same as domestic good. It is not generally saying that about WTO, which of the following statement is true. No, it is saying that particularly which of the following best explains the principle of national treatment. National treatment, the principle of national treatment states that once the foreign good has entered the domestic market, it should be treated same as the domestic good. Got it, Sejal? That you have to be particular about the question and you have to answer in the best possible manner. The best explanation for the principle of national treatment is this. Now coming to the next question, answer this. GATT, that is the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It talks about the trade in goods, right? So goods. Okay. So GATT, multilateral framework governing trade in goods and non-discrimination. So yes, the trade in goods, the GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. This particularly talks about the trade in goods. So first A ka 4. Now GATS, it talks about the trade in services. Okay, so B ka 2. Now TRIPS, that is intellectual property, protection of inventions, trademarks, creative works. So yes, that is intellectual property, the creation of mind, the creative work. So C ka 3. Okay, so that means B is the answer, na? D, that is trade policy review mechanism. So periodic examination of national trade policies to enhance transparency. D ka first. So GATT is the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade in goods. GATS is about services, the trade in services. The TRIPS is the trade policy. It is the trade related aspect to the intellectual property rights. So it is intellectual property, that is invention, trademark, creative work. So this is correct. TPRM is the trade policy review mechanism, that is the national trade policies are reviewed by the WTO to enhance the transparency to improve the trade policies of the nations. Okay, so B is the answer. Now coming to the next question, India was one of the first countries in Asia to recognize the effectiveness of the export processing zone model in promoting exports. Asia's first EPZ the first export processing zone was set up in India in 1965 at which of the following location? At which of the following location? So very easy question. You must know that Asia's first export processing zone was set up in India in 1965 in Kandla. So Asia's first export processing zone was set up in Kandla in India. So this is the idea. So India was one of the first in Asia to recognize the effectiveness of the export processing zone model, with Asia's first export processing zone set up in Kandla in 1965. So operational special economic zones are 276 currently. Now, with reference to special economic zones in India, which of the following statements regarding incentives, operational features and tax treatment of special economic zone units and developers, which of the following statements are correct? That you have to tell. Which of the following statements are correct? No routine. So in consideration of the special economic zones. So special economic zones are the specially demarcated territory that is considered, that is deemed as foreign territory. Okay, that is deemed foreign territory. So which of the following statements are correct in regards to the special economic zone? No routine examination by customs authorities of export or import cargo, correct. 100% income tax exemption on the export income for special economic zone units for the first 15 years. For the first how many years? The export income, the income tax exemption on the export income, 100% of the income tax exemption on the export income is for 5 years. So yes, it is 5 years. So this is wrong. 100% income tax exemption on export income for the special economic zone for 5 years. Okay. The duty-free import or domestic procurement of goods for development, operation, maintenance of SEZ units. So if the import has to happen or domestic procurement has to happen, so this is duty-free import for the goods for the development operation. So this is correct. This is correct. Now, the units are only required to achieve positive net foreign exchange from exports. So see, the units that are established in special economic zone, they need to have the positive net foreign exchange. That means they need to earn the foreign exchange from the exports to be calculated cumulatively for a period of 5 years from the commencement of production. This is also correct. So basically first is correct, second is wrong. It should be 5 years. Third and fourth are correct. So 1, 3 and 4. So there are the recent updates in the special economic zone. So I have taken this from the special economic zones in India, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Department of Commerce website, and in the FAQs, the recent update has been shown. So this will be updated in the concept notes, in the concepts by Monday in your course also, because there are certain recent updates that have happened. So the salient important features are a designated duty-free enclave. So special economic zone has a duty-free enclave. Duties are not levied. No license required for import. Manufacturing or services activities are allowed. The units, see, the condition means, this condition means that the unit that is established in special economic zone has to earn the net foreign exchange. That is, they have to earn the foreign exchange not individually every year, but in the cumulative basis for a period of 5 years. So the condition means that a unit that is established in the special economic zone is not required to earn net foreign exchange every year individually. They do not have to have the positive foreign exchange every year individually. Instead, what matters is the overall performance in the collective 5 years, allowing initial import. So initially, in the initial years, they might have established, they might have acquired the raw material, they might have acquired the machinery in the initial years. So initially, they had the import intensive phase to be balanced by future export earnings. So that's why the individual earnings of the years is not seen, right? Rather than that, cumulative earning is seen, so that the units, they are able to have the positive net foreign exchange, and they can show this positive net foreign exchange. So the units are required to achieve the positive net foreign exchange, that is the positive earnings from the export, to be calculated cumulatively for a period of 5 years from the commencement of production. So the condition means that a unit is not required to earn the positive foreign exchange every year individually. Rather, what matters is the overall performance over a longer horizon, that in the longer horizon, in the 5-year cumulative period, they were able to have the positive foreign exchange earnings. Okay, that is the idea. So this is the idea. Now next is income tax exemption on income derived from business of development. So if there is the development that is happening of the special economic zone, so income tax exemption is for a block of 10 years in 15 years. So income tax exemption is for 10 years. In the 15-year time period, you can take that, okay, for these 10 years I want income tax exemption. While this is for the developers of the special economic zone. If you are developing the special economic zone, then you can have the income tax exemption from the business of development of special economic zone for 10 years. Income tax exemption can be provided in the block of 15 years. While if you are doing the export and from the export you are earning the income, then 100% income tax exemption is given for the initial 5 years. In the next 5 years, 50% of income tax exemption will be given on the export income. 50% of income tax exemption will be given. In the next 5 years, 50% of the invested export profit will be exempted from the tax. So 100% of income tax exemption of the export income, 100% of the exemption is provided for the first 5 years. In the next 5 years, the export income is exempted till the 50%, and in the next 5 years, the 50% of the reinvested export profit is exempted for the next 5 years. This is the idea. Okay. So these are some of the data points that you can remember. Now coming to the next question, which of the following is not matched correctly? Now fiscal policy is not one of the chapters that is mentioned in your syllabus, but in the union budget you have heard the terms fiscal deficit, primary deficit, revenue deficit. So what is the meaning of fiscal deficit? What is the definition of, or what is the formula of fiscal deficit that you need to keep in mind? So fiscal deficit, I have told you, it is total expenditure minus total receipts excluding borrowing. It is total expenditure minus total receipts excluding borrowing. So fiscal deficit, let's say expenditure, the government is having the expenditure of 200 crores, total receipts are 150 crores. So fiscal deficit is 50 crores. So the borrowing, excluding borrowing, we have used the total receipts, just borrowings are excluded, just borrowings are left. So fiscal deficit is of 50 crores. That means 50 crores is the borrowing requirement. Fiscal deficit shows the total borrowing requirement. Okay. Primary deficit, the primary deficit, it is the fiscal deficit minus the interest payments of the past loans. Revenue deficit, it is the revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Effective revenue deficit, it is revenue deficit minus grants used for the creation of capital asset. Okay, so remember the formulas, at least just the formulas you need to keep in mind, so that if a fill in the blank kind of question is coming about fiscal deficit, what is the percentage in the union budget, and it shows the dash, so it shows the borrowing requirement of the government. So you can answer such kind of question if you know the formulas. Okay, so E is the answer because it is not correct. Revenue deficit minus grants for the creation of capital asset. So grants that are used for the capital asset, not capital assets. So D is the answer. So revenue deficit is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Fiscal deficit is total expenditure minus total receipts excluding borrowing. Primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest payments. Effective revenue deficit is the difference. Effective revenue deficit is the difference between revenue deficit and the grants for the creation of capital assets. This is the idea. Now, coming to the last question that I will be discussing with you. Now, after this, Jaskaran sir will be taking over. Okay, Jaskaran sir will be taking over for the social issues part. So, the economics part is finished with this last question. Then, Jaskaran sir will be taking over. Now, during an economic downturn, if the economic downturn has come, demand for automobiles and the consumer durables decline sharply. Okay, during the economic downturn, when there is contraction that is happening in the economy is in the downturn, the contraction is happening, the demand for automobiles and consumer durables decline sharply. The demand is less for the automobiles, there is less demand for the consumer durables. Several manufacturing firms reduce production, and with less production, there is less employment. So unemployment is increasing. Now this kind of unemployment is what? And the unemployment will decrease when the economy recovers. So this kind of unemployment is cyclical unemployment. This kind of unemployment is cyclical unemployment. Okay. So now this is done from my end. Do read about the different kinds of unemployment. The most important are the structural, frictional, cyclical, this guys that we have discussed. Okay. Now the open unemployment is also known as naked unemployment. Chalo. Now Jaskaran sir will be taking over. So let him start the session and let me finish it. Okay. So thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session. Your agreements primarily because
Okay, so hi everyone. I think I'm live right now, and I hope I'm audible to all of you. Can you please confirm in the chat box? Okay, so hi everyone. I think I'm live right now, and I hope I'm audible to all of you. Okay, can you please so I confirm in the think chat box? We are live. So let us begin. So now let us begin with the part 2, right, with respect to this component. So now we are going to primarily focus upon social issues and some miscellaneous other topics also, for example, the inflation and some rural financial institutions. These type of MCQs we are going to solve as a part of it. So here comes the first question. With reference to the classification of constitutions, consider the following statements. In an unwritten constitution, there is no clear distinction between the constituent law and ordinary administrative law. A federal constitution signifies that the governments of the constituent units are coordinate with another rather than being subordinate to the central government. The third is the Indian constitution is unique because all its amendments are carried out through a rigid procedure as described under Article 368. Yes. So mark your answers. I can see your comments in the chat box. Yes, Captain Saver, I'm fine. So please mark your answers. Somebody saying C, somebody saying D. Okay, so when we talk about constitutions, right, so there can be two type of constitutions basically. One is written constitution and the second is unwritten constitution. Now unwritten constitution does not mean कि constitution लिखा ही नहीं हुआ. It has been written, but the difference is that it has not been codified. It has not been codified into a single document, right? So that's why we call it unwritten, because it has not been codified into a single document. For example, if I talk about India, India has a written document, right? We have a written constitution, a well defined single document under which all the different type of constitutional articles have been written, right? But if we talk about, for example, the constitution of UK, the constitution of UK is an unwritten one because it has not been codified into a single document, right? And there is no clear distinction. That is why, since it has not been codified into a single document, so that is why there is no clear distinction between the constituent law and the ordinary administrative law. So this is correct, right? This statement is true. Then the second is, a federal constitution signifies that the governments of the constituent units are coordinate with one another rather than being subordinate to the central government. So yes, this is also true. If you talk about the federal constitution, we know that there is division of power between the central and the state government, right? So center and the different states that are there, there is proper division of power, and over there the governments, they coordinate with each other. So this is also true. If you talk about third one, it says Indian constitution is unique because all its amendments are carried out through a rigid procedure prescribed in Article 368. This is not the correct statement, because if we talk about the amendments as a part of the Indian Constitution, amendments can happen through the simple majority also. It can happen through special majority also as defined under Article 368. And apart from that, it can also be amended through the special majority plus ratification, and also which also requires the consent of the half of the states, right? So there are different type of mechanism. It is not that only Article 368 is there to amend the constitution, right? And let me also tell you that Indian constitution is not something that is very rigid, right? It is not considered as a rigid constitution, but it is considered as a mixture of rigidity and flexibility because of a different sort of features. So this is going to be the incorrect option. So C is going to be the correct answer to this question. Now let us move on to question number 2. So match the following. So tell me, which of these following provisions have been taken from which sources of constitution? Which country's constitution? What are the sources? Question number 2. Concurrent list, constituent assembly, procedure established by law, and the fourth one is republic. So if you talk about concurrent list, right, we know that as a part of concurrent list, what happens? One is union list, with which the matters that are there as a part of the union government, they are dealt as a part of this list. Then we have the state list also, and the third is basically the concurrent list, right, where basically both center as well as the state government, they can basically legislate with respect to certain type of subjects, right. And let me tell you that this is something that has been borrowed from the Australian constitution, right. If you talk about constitutional amendment, ये तो हमें पता है कि constitution को हम amend करते हैं, right, और ये कहाँ से आया? This has been taken from the South African constitution. If we talk about procedure established by law, right, so we know procedure established by law, the roots of this procedure established by law, they come from article 21 of the constitution, right, and basically it has been borrowed from the Japanese constitution only. And if we talk about the term republic, right, so Republic of India, as we say, so this term has been, this provision regarding the republic, right, it has been taken from the France constitution, right, the French constitution. So if you try to match these different sources, so you can see A का 2 हो गया, so first का 2, we can eliminate these ones, right, तो इन दोनों में से आंसर होगा, and second का 1 हो गया, so second का 1, so A is going to be the correct answer to this question, right, as I can see in the chat box that many of you have given the correct answer. Okay, now let us move on to the next question, question number 3, which is regarding the different fundamental rights that are there, right. अगर इस चैप्टर में सबसे ज्यादा कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट है, मतलब अगर क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, तो वो एरिया फंडामेंटल राइट, जहां पर बहुत सारे पीवाईक्यूज पूछे गए हैं. आजकल कम आ रहे हैं क्वेश्चन, बट कोई पता नहीं है रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज का, दे कीप ऑन चेंजिंग द ट्रेंड्स एंड पैटर्न, राइट, सो दे कैन आस्क सच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन. सो आर्टिकल, ये जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के फंडामेंटल राइट्स है, दिस इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट यू नीड टू नो. बाकी सब आता हो या ना, ये थोड़ा पता होना चाहिए कि इंपॉर्टेंट आर्टिकल्स कौन से हैं. सो प्लीज मैच द फॉलोइंग. Mark your answers for question number 3. And by the way, it is also a good thing that if you are able to remember these constitutional articles for your descriptive paper also, right. मान लो inequality से related question आ जाता है, तो वहां आप आर्टिकल 17 की बात कर सकते हो, जो कि अनटचेबिलिटी से रिलेटेड है, राइट. तो आप लिख सकते हो अपने कंक्लूजन में कि यार आर्टिकल 17 है, या फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल प्रोविजन एज अ पार्ट ऑफ सोल्यूशन लिख सकते हो आप. सो अगर आपको बेसिक छोटे छोटे आर्टिकल्स को याद होंगे सिलेबस से मैप करके, तो you can add it as a part of your answer. So what is going to be the answer to this question? So if you talk about article 17 we know it is for abolition of untouchability, right. तो अगर ये 1 के साथ 2 मैच करें, तो these are the options that we can eliminate, right, क्योंकि यहाँ पर 1 के साथ कुछ और लगा हुआ है. Then if we talk about article 21, we know that it is protection of life and liberty, ठीक है, तो ये सब इसी में आता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल राइट टू प्रिवेसी, वो भी आर्टिकल 21 का ही पार्ट है, राइट. सो ऑल सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग्स दे कम अंडर आर्टिकल 21. सो 2 का 1 होगा, सो ये दोनों 2 के 1 हो गए. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट आर्टिकल 24, आर्टिकल 24 इज रिगार्डिंग चिल्ड्रन, रिगार्डिंग द प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट ऑफ चिल्ड्रन इन फैक्ट्रीज, राइट. सो दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द करेक्ट स्टेटमेंट, एंड इसके लिए ये होगा तो 3 के लिए 4. सो ए इज गोइंग टू बी द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन, राइट, एंड मेनी ऑफ यू हैव मार्क्ड द करेक्ट आंसर. ओके, नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन, क्वेश्चन नंबर 4. सॉरी, ये रिपीट हो गया, माय बैड. क्वेश्चन नंबर 5 पे चलते हैं. An economy is witnessing a situation where too much money is chasing too few goods, resulting in aggregate demand exceeding aggregate supply. This situation is the classic feature of what type of inflation? This situation is an example of what type of inflation? Yes, so we know that too much money chasing too few goods, which basically reflects that there is too much of money supply in the economy. And when there is too much of money supply in the economy, what happens? Basically, people have too much of money to spend, they will go to the market, and that will lead to increase in the demand. And when the demand with respect to different goods and services get increased in the market, what is going to happen with the price? The price is also going to get increased, right? And this entire phenomena is because of the fact that aggregate demand, this demand is more than the aggregate supply, right? Supply is not changing up to the extent the way the demand is changing, it is getting increased, right? So the aggregate demand in the market, it exceeds aggregate supply. So this is nothing but the demand pull inflation, right? So C is going to be the correct answer to this question. Question number 6, which of the following would most likely lead to cost push inflation? Which of the following most likely would lead to cost push inflation? Yes, so if you talk about cost push inflation, what is the primary factor behind cost push inflation? It is basically nothing but the factors of production, right? So it is primarily from the supply side factors, right? And if we see these options, right, out of them basically C can be the correct answer to this question, because basically it is putting barriers, it is adding barriers as a part of the supply chain, right, because of which the oil prices are going to get increased and it is going to impact the economy in a severe manner. So that is going to lead to increase in the different goods and services prices, right? And that C is going to be the correct answer because it is directly linked to the supply side factor. Now moving on to question number 7. The wage price spiral, where rising wages lead to higher prices and higher wages in return lead to further wage demands, is a primary driver of which type of inflation? Question number 7. Right. So if you talk about this wage price spiral, what happens over here? For example, if there is a certain type of factory, right, and in this factory there are different type of workers, right, and there is a situation of inflation as a part of the economy. So the inflation is there. Now what these workers are going to do, they will ask the factory owner that their wages should be increased, right? So what the factory owner is going to do, after a certain point of time, he is going to meet the demand, and what he is going to do, he is going to increase the wages. He's going to increase the wages as a part of it, right? Now when the wages are going to get increased, don't you think the cost of expenditure of this factory, it is also going to get increased, right? क्योंकि अब सैलरी देने के लिए पैसे बढ़ा दिए गए हैं, तो बजट जो है सैलरी के लिए वो ज्यादा हो गया, राइट? सो इन ऑर्डर टू कंपेंसेट दैट, इन ऑर्डर टू बैलेंस इट, व्हाट इट इज गोइंग टू डू, इन ऑर्डर टू बैलेंस it is going to increase the prices of the finished products in the market, right? Now when this phenomena happens as a part of, as a part of one of the important primary drivers as a part of the economy, right, by different type of companies, right, and this entire phenomenon is known as wage price spiral. क्योंकि स्पाइरल की तरह इससे क्या होगा कि फिनिश प्रोडक्ट का प्राइस इंक्रीज हो गया, तो जब ये इकोनॉमी में बड़े एक्सटेंट पे होगा, because of this what is going to happen, the inflation is going to get increased. Now inflation has gone increased. Now again what the workers are going to do, workers will go to the market, they will see the inflation is high, right? So they will again they will again demand the increase in the wages. Now again the wage demand is going to be there. Now again the wages are going to be increased. Now again, in order to compensate that, right, what they are going to do, they are going to increase the finished good products, right? They are going to increase the prices of the finished good product. Now this cycle is going to get repeated, right, and that is why it is known as what? It is known as spiral, wage प्राइस स्पाइरल, कि पहले वेज इंक्रीज होती है, फिर फिनिश प्रोडक्ट का प्राइस इंक्रीज हो जाता है और दोबारा फिर से वेजेस के लिए वर्कर चले जाते हैं, राइट? एंड दिस इज इन कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ द बिल्ट इन इन्फ्लेशन. सो बी इज गोइंग टू बी द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन. इसे हम बिल्ट इन इन्फ्लेशन के कंटेक्स्ट में पढ़ते हैं, राइट? सो दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन, विच इज द बी ऑप्शन as a part of it. Now question number 8. Why is core inflation often preferred by central bank policy makers for long-term monetary policy planning? Why is core inflation often preferred by central bank policy makers for long-term monetary policy planning? Anu is writing B. What about others? Sejal is writing C. What about the others? What is going to be the answer to question number 8? Yes. So there are basically two types of inflations, right? If based upon the context, right, what they cover as a part of the economy. So the first one is headline inflation and the second is the core inflation. Headline inflation basically reflects the entire inflation that is there as a part of the economy. It includes all different type of items, volatile items also, and the non-volatile items also. Volatile means basically, for example, the food inflation, right, the food prices that are there, or you can say the fuel prices that are there, which are very volatile in nature and which are very much prone to fluctuation. But unlike headline inflation, if you talk about the core inflation, what it does basically, it removes these volatile items as a part of it, right? So that is something that it does, right? So based on that, basically C is going to be the correct answer to this question because it removes the noise created by volatile food and fuel prices, thereby reflecting the underlying inflation trend, right? So this is what it does. So C is going to be the correct answer to this question. Moving on to question number 9. An economy experiences stagnant or very low growth, high unemployment and high inflation at the same time. The situation is best described as? वेरी इजी क्वेश्चन, ये तो बहुत इजी है, ये तो सबका सही होगा. स्टैगफ्लेशन, राइट? व्हाट हैपेंस इन केस ऑफ स्टैगफ्लेशन? Stagflation means stag plus flation, where stag basically reflects what? It reflects stagnation with respect to economic growth. Inflation means high inflation, right? Now imagine the scenario where the growth, economic growth of the country is stagnant, where basically means that different industries that are there, they are not able to grow, they are not able to see a lot of profit, right? So what they're going to do after a certain point of time when the inflation is also high, which basically means the prices of the raw materials are also increased, right? Now when the prices of raw material has got increased and the economic growth is also down, right, which means their earning is also getting compromised. So what they're going to do, they are going to lay off the employees, right? Because they will not be able to meet this cost of expenditure, this rising cost of expenditure under this type of scenario, right? So what they're going to do, they're going to lay off different employees, and that will lead to situation of increase in the unemployment as a part of the economy. So these are the three important characteristics that you need to remember regarding stagflation: that stagnant economic growth, high rate of inflation, and increased unemployment as a part of it. So C is going to be the answer to this question, right? Question number 10. Regarding wholesale price index in India, which of the following statement is incorrect? Regarding wholesale prices in India, which of the following statement is incorrect? Yes, we know that if we talk about wholesale prices, right? So wholesale price index, what does it include? It basically talks about, it basically calculates, it tracks the changes in the prices at the wholesale market with respect to different type of goods. But please remember, when we talk about the wholesale price index, it does not include the services. Why basically? What is the reason? Because services are something that are not consumed at wholesale level. For example, if you are consuming any kind of service from EduTap by purchasing any course, so is there any wholesaler involved as a part of it? The answer is no. You are directly purchasing the services and they are being provided to you. If you travel from one place to another, right, through any mode of transport, so in the transport service sector, does any kind of wholesaler get involved? The answer is no, right? You are directly dealing with that certain person who is providing you the service, right? So that is why services are not taken into account when we talk about the wholesale sector, right? And that is why they are also not considered while calculating the wholesale price index. So that is why C is going to be the answer to this question, because it says it includes the cost of services such as healthcare, education, transport. ठीक है, तो ये सब नहीं होता है. And rest of the options we know are true. And if I ask you another question, that out of these three, which one has the highest weightage when we talk about the wholesale price index? Out of primary articles, fuel and power, and manufactured products, which one has the highest weightage? So the highest weightage is for which one? Yes, write it. It is for the manufacturing sector, right, Nilesh? So it is for the manufacturing sector, right? So that is something again you have to remember as a part of it. Now the question number 11. During a period of high inflation, which of the following is most likely to get benefited? Yes, 64%. During a situation of high inflation, which of the following is most likely to get benefited? Nilesh is saying D. What about others? सेजल इज सेइंग सी. और बताओ यार, सी भी हो गया, डी भी हो गया. एनीबॉडी एल्स? एक और आ गया आंसर, चलो ई भी आ गया. ठीक है. सो okay, so let us see. Basically what happens is that, for example, let us say if the inflation is high, right? So let me tell you these two scenarios. Let me tell you these two scenarios as a part of it. So when we talk about the first scenario, over here what happens, let us talk about those people who belong to wealthy class and those people who have some kind of fixed income, right? Now those people who have fixed income, for example, those people who rely upon pension or maybe wages or maybe salary, also sort of things, right? And wealthy people are those who have invested in different type of assets. For example, they are holding the assets like gold, real estate, right? Different sort of assets can be there. Now when the inflation increases as a part of the economy, what basically happens? These people are going to get suffered. Why? Because their income is fixed, right? And the income is not increasing with the pace with which the inflation is increasing, right? Their income is not matching the pace with which the inflation is increasing in the market. So they are going to suffer. But when we talk about these people, these are the wealthy people who are holding different sort of assets. So the value of these assets is going to get increased as a part of the market. So what they are going to do, they are going to get benefited as a part of it. And that is why we say that when the inflation happens, what does it lead to? It basically increases inequality as a part of the economy. These people are earning, right? But these people are suffering as a part of it. So they are the one who are getting benefited. For example, real estate, gold, ये सब चीजें, right? The value of these assets keep on getting increased with time. So that is the idea. So C तो होगा ही, ठीक है? अब एक और सिचुएशन समझते हैं. Let us say there is this person X and there is this person Y. This person X is the creditor, right? And this person Y is the borrower. Let us say inflation in the market is 5%, right? At this point of time, and this person gives a loan to this person, to this borrower. Let us say the loan amount is rupees 1 lakh, the time is of 1 year, and the interest rate that he is going to earn is 6%. But eventually what happens, because of some uncertainty in the economy, what happens? The inflation increases to 7%. Now tell me, when this borrower is going to return the money to the creditor, don't you think this borrower, whatever 1 lakh he is going to return, along with the interest rate of 6%, that is not going to be equally worth as it was earlier, because earlier inflation was 5%. So the net income that he is earning through this interest rate, that has gone declined, right? But if we talk about the borrower, he got benefited because he did not have to pay this money by matching it with the inflation. Because अगर ये inflation पहले 7% होती तो यहाँ पर interest rate भी बढ़ा देता, right, to match it with the inflation. So that is why what has happened in this case, the borrower has got benefited, whereas the creditor has suffered as a part of it, right? So when the inflation is high, in case of inflation, B for borrower and B for benefit, right? Remember like this, those of you who get confused. So B for borrower and B for benefit. So borrower is going to get benefited, whereas creditor is going to get suffered. But in case of deflation, what is going to happen? In case of deflation, the reverse scenario is going to be there, because the prices are going down, right? So over here, the creditor is going to get benefited and the borrower is going to suffer, right? So based on that, basically E is going to be the correct answer to this question, right? E is the correct answer, because wealthy people, right, who own the asset, they are most likely to get benefited, a win-win situation for them, right? And also this borrower that is there, he is also going to get benefited. So these two scenarios are there. So E is going to be the correct answer. I hope this is clear to you, a small concept, right? So now let us move on to the next one. Is it clear, Nilesh? Right? So आगे चलते हैं. So tell me about regional rural bank. Regional rural banks are mandated to allocate 75% of their total advances to the priority sector lending as per the RBI guidelines. The shareholding structure is 50:35:15. Then RRBs are established under RRBs Act. So read the options and please mark your correct answer as a part of it. Yes, everyone. Nilesh is saying D. What about others? Lohita is saying C. बाकी लोग क्या कह रहे हैं? सेजल भी C बोल रहे हैं. Okay. C. Okay. So if we talk about regional rural bank, right? So if we talk about regional rural bank, so yes, this first point is correct, because this is their priority sector lending allocation as a part of it, right? And if we talk about the shareholding pattern, now this point says that the shareholding pattern of RRBs is split between the center, the state, and the sponsored bank in the ratio of 50:35:15, right? But this is a wrong ratio, because what is the correct ratio? The correct ratio is 50:35:15, where 50 is the central government, 15 is the state government, and 35 is going to be the sponsored bank. तो ये गलत होगा, right? So if we eliminate this one, and ये तो of course सही है यार, RRB Act के थ्रू ये फॉर्म हुए थे और ये इनका प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव है. These are the peoples that they target. So based upon that, C is going to be the correct answer, right? तो C होगा. I hope it is clear to everyone. Now let us move on to next question. Question number 13th. Payment banks are allowed to accept deposits up to rupees 2 lakh per customer, while SFBs, which is small finance banks, can accept both demand deposit and time deposit without any limit on the amount. Both payment banks and small finance banks are permitted to issue credit cards and offer loans to the customers, and the paid up capital requirement of payment bank is higher than that of small finance banks. So tell me what is going to be the correct answer to this question. Yes everyone, ध्यान से पढ़ो, जल्दी नहीं है मुझे कोई, ठीक है, टेक योर टाइम. Yes, Nilesh is writing A. What about others? Mark your answers. Okay, so if you talk about payment bank, right? So statement number A is payment banks are allowed to accept deposits to up to rupees 2 lakh per customer, while SFBs can accept both demand and time deposit without any limit on the amount, right? This is true. Now, both payment banks and small finance banks are permitted to issue credit card and offer loans to the customer. We know that if you talk about the payment banks, right? So what is the scenario? These are the banks that cannot perform any kind of lending activity, right? They can perform the deposit activity, but there is a limit of up to rupees 2 lakh only, right? So rupees 2 lakh is the limit. Now apart from that, we know since they are not allowed to provide lending, right, they are also not allowed to be involved in the business of credit cards. Credit cards they cannot issue. Can they issue debit card? The answer is yes, they can issue debit card. Can they issue checkbook? Yes, they can issue checkbook. If I ask you which was the first payment bank that was established in India, you need to remember it was Airtel Payment Bank. Okay. Apart from that, if I ask you which is the government's payment bank, it is basically Indian Postal Payment Bank. And if I ask you under which ministry does this Indian Postal Payment Bank comes, right? So don't think that it is Ministry of Finance, because that is not the answer. It is under Ministry of Communication, Postal Department. ठीक है, तो ये छोटी छोटी चीजें आप जो आपको याद होनी चाहिए पेमेंट बैंक्स के रिगार्डिंग. तो यहाँ पर स्टेटमेंट बोल रहा है बोथ पेमेंट्स एंड स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स आर परमिटेड टू इशू क्रेडिट कार्ड एंड ऑफर लोन्स टू द कस्टमर. ये गलत है, बिकॉज पेमेंट बैंक्स आर नॉट अलाउड टू डू सो. If we talk about the paid up capital for payment bank, it is 100 crore. And if we talk about small finance bank, right, so it is 300 crore. So this one is higher. So that is why these two are going to be the incorrect options and A is going to be the answer to this question. I hope this is clear to everyone. Question number 14th regarding the Human Development Index. ठीक है, तो आपका Human Development वाला चैप्टर है सिलेबस में, तो वहां से क्वेश्चन है. So please mark your answer. Consider the following statements regarding the Human Development Index. Okay, so HDI is a composite index that measures average achievement in three basic dimensions of human development: health, education and income. This is true, right? तो कुछ लोग स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग कह रहे हैं, वो इनकम के साथ ही अलाइन किया जाता है, ठीक है, इसी के साथ ही वो मेजर किया जाता है. यू विल अंडरस्टैंड इट विद मोर क्लैरिटी व्हेन आई विल रीड द स्टेटमेंट नंबर 2. It says the health dimension is measured by life expectancy at birth. The education dimension by means years of schooling, unexpected years of schooling, and the income dimension measured by GDP per capita. GDP per capita नहीं होता, ये होता है GNI per capita, gross national income per capita. So this is going to be the incorrect statement. Then the SDI value ranges from 0 to 1, with 1 indicating the highest level of human development. This is true. So based on that, basically 1 and 3, तो C is going to be the correct answer to this question, right? So ये GDP नहीं होता, ये GNI होता है. This is gross national income as a part of it. So let us move on to question number 15. Which 5-year plan of India is associated with Mahalanobis plan? Mahalanobis model. Which 5-year plan of India is associated with Mahalanobis model? ये तो इजी सा क्वेश्चन है यार, ठीक है, इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़ा होगा. Mahalanobis model कौन सा है? सेकंड 5-year plan. And what did it deal with? It dealt with what? It basically worked primarily in the direction of promotion of what? जल्दी से बोल दो. Promotion of industrialization, right? This is what it did. So B is going to be the correct answer to this question. Second 5-year plan. Yes, very good, Lohita. So promotion of industrial sector. So this is what it did very specifically, and an important model. So B होगा इसका. आगे चलते हैं. Question number 16th. Poverty may sometimes be a temporary phenomena arising from short-term disturbances in an individual's economic condition. For instance, a person who is between jobs, has recently migrated, or is temporarily unemployed may experience a brief phase during which their income falls below the poverty line. Such a condition is not permanent, and the individual is likely to regain financial stability once normal employment resumes. So what type of poverty is described in the above passage? तो थोड़ा लंबा हो गया क्वेश्चन, लेकिन पढ़ लो, ठीक है, आसानी है. अटेम्प्टेड. क्वेश्चन नंबर 16th. ओके, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इफ यू टॉक अबाउट एब्सोल्यूट पॉवर्टी, एब्सोल्यूट मतलब हो गया कि यार पूरा का पूरा एब्सोल्यूट नंबर पे, मतलब कि एक इंसान है, देयर इज अ पर्सन हु डज नॉट हैव बेसिक नेसेसिटीज. फॉर एग्जांपल, रोटी भी नहीं है, राइट, नो फूड, कपड़ा भी नहीं है, राइट, नो क्लोथ, और मकान भी नहीं है, नो शेल्टर. सो दैट इज नथिंग बट एब्सोल्यूट पॉवर्टी, राइट. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट क्रॉनिक पॉवर्टी जो होती है, दैट इज बेसिकली इज अ काइंड ऑफ परसिस्टेंट पॉवर्टी जो लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए होती है, राइट. एंड व्हाट are the driving factors behind the chronic poverty? Usually they are structural factors. For example, you can say the lack of education, right, the lack of employment, you can say lack of health, social exclusion. These type of things can be there with respect to chronic poverty. But if we talk about frictional poverty को हम temporary poverty भी बोलते हैं, टेम्परेरी पॉवर्टी. और ये जो पॉवर्टी होती है ना, शॉर्ट टर्म फैक्टर्स की वजह से होती है. इट इज primarily because of the short term economic factors, right? For example, you can say seasonal unemployment, right? It can also be because of, I would say, migration, right? It can be because of the fact that you want to transition from one job to another. मान लो आपको जॉब चेंज करनी है, right? तो उस दौरान अगर आप कोई ऐसी सिचुएशन फेस कर रहे हो, दैट इज बेसिकली रिफ्लेक्टेड टू फ्रिक्शनल. इसी तरह एक फ्रिक्शनल अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट भी होती है, जो भी सेम तरीके से हम अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं, राइट. द नेक्स्ट इज रिलेटिव पॉवर्टी. नाउ इफ यू टॉक अबाउट रिलेटिव पॉवर्टी, इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू, आई वुड से, the poverty line. It is not related to fixed poverty line because it is relative in nature, where basically we relate it, we basically compare it with the average income that is there, right. And if you talk about disguised poverty का मतलब है that, for example, if there is a land, right, in this land the requirement for laborers is of 10 people, right, और 10 लोग की रिक्वायरमेंट है, लेकिन काम कर रहे हैं 16 लोग, right. So this is something that is we call disguised nature, when more than required people, right, they are working in a certain place, right, which basically leads to you can say negative or zero marginal productivity with respect to a certain type of land where the people are working. So that is something you can say is the correct answer to this question is going to be what? It is going to be frictional unemployment, which is a temporary phenomena that is there, right. C is going to be the correct answer. Question number 17th. Which of the following statements accurately describes the concept from the study of population? So tell me. Read the options. लंबे लंबे options है, एक बार टाइम लेके पढ़ो and mark the correct answer. For question number 17th. Which of the following accurately describes key concept from the study of population? Question number 17th. Which of the following are correct? So read the options carefully. Yes. So most of you writing E as the answer to this question. So let us read the options, right? So total fertility rate, we know it refers to average number of children that the woman is going to produce, right, during our childbearing years. So that is, of course, the correct statement. The second is dependency ratio is the ratio of the working age population to the non-working age population, indicating the economic burden on the working population. This is the incorrect statement. Why is it so? Because dependency ratio, when we talk about the dependency ratio is basically the ratio of non-working age population with respect to the working age population, right? And not the opposite of that. But यहाँ पर क्या लिखा है? Working age population to non-working age population. तो ये नहीं होता. Working age population, I would say denominator में आता है, non-working age population numerator में आता है. So that is why this is the incorrect statement in that context. And demographic dividend तो हम सबको पता है, right? It is the maximum potential, right, with respect to economic growth by utilizing the potential of the youthful population, right? And population pyramid is also is something that we get to know through the age or sex structure with respect to the population, right, through the graphical illustrations. So that is why I would say ये वाला गलत होगा तो 1, 3 and 4. So B is going to be the correct answer to this question. ठीक है, तो छोटी सी इसमें चेंज किया था. So read the options carefully. Question number 18th. Which of the following statements accurately describe the key concept terms related to urbanization? Which of the following statements accurately describe the key concept terms related to urbanization? Yes, mark your answer regarding question number 18th. A, C, D. तो तीन आंसर्स आ चुके हैं हमारे पास. So let us see what is going to be the correct answer with respect to this question. So first of all, it talks about urban sprawl. So urban sprawl ये बोल रहे हैं कि refers to the uncontrolled expansion of urban areas into surrounding rural land, right? तो ये बड़ा सा urban area, right? तो इसके जो सराउंडिंग लैंड है, राइट, तो यहाँ पर जब एक्सपेंशन होती है इस एरियाज की छोटी छोटी, तो उसको हम अर्बन स्प्रॉल कहते हैं, राइट. तो छोटे छोटे यहाँ पे कुछ पॉपुलेशन यहाँ सेटल हो जाती है, कुछ यहाँ पर कुछ यहाँ पर. सो दीज आर द अर्बन स्प्रॉल्स दैट आर देयर, राइट. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट जेंट्रिफिकेशन, जेंट्रिफिकेशन क्या होता है बेसिकली? इट इन्वॉल्व्स व्हेन द हाई इनकम ग्रुप पीपल, what they do basically, they go into, or you can say they move into low income neighborhoods. And what does it lead to? When these high income group people, when they when they move to low income neighborhoods, what happens basically? It leads to a displacement of the original residents in those areas, right? And this displacement, right, this displacement is nothing that is established through this term gentrification. If you want to know why this displacement happens, because of different type of factors, because this high income group people, they are basically moving to these areas where low income people are living. So that basically does what? It basically leads to increase in the increase in the value of the property, increase in the value of the rents, all such sort of things, right? Which basically later on in long term it leads to displacement of the original residents in this location. So that process is defined through the gentrification. अब यहाँ पर क्या लिखा है? यहाँ पर उल्टा लिखा है. It is a process by which lower income group people move to renovate older renovate to often older often deteriorated urban neighborhood. तो ये गलत है. उल्टा क्या होता है कि जो लो इनकम ग्रुप हाई इनकम ग्रुप पीपल होते हैं दे मूव टू दोज लोकेशंस वेयर लो इनकम ग्रुप पीपल आर देयर, राइट? सो दैट इज द इनकरेक्ट स्टेटमेंट. स्मार्ट सिटी तो यार ये सबको पता है कि इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज करके बेसिकली वी आर क्लबिंग the information technology with the urbanization so that different problems that are there with respect to urbanization they can be resolved, right? तो ये तो करेक्ट है. फिर एक टर्म होता है काउंटर अर्बनाइजेशन. जैसे अर्बनाइजेशन क्या होता है? बेसिकली पीपल फ्रॉम रूरल एरियाज दे मूव टू अर्बन एरियाज, राइट? दैट लीड्स टू अर्बनाइजेशन. बट काउंटर क्या होता है? द अर्बन पीपल, right? The movement of people from the urban areas to the rural center, right? Because they are tired from their hectic lifestyle, so they want to get rid of that. So basically that is the term that we denote in order to understand it basically is the counter urbanization. तो ये भी सही है. So based on that I would say this is the incorrect. So 1, 3 and 4. So D is going to be the correct answer to this question, right? So I hope these small terms are clear to you. Now let us move on to next one. एक second. Yes, D here. So question number 19th. Which of the following are correctly identified as the Bretton Woods twins? Which of the following are correctly identified as the Bretton Woods twins? So Bretton Woods twins कौन सी होंगे इसमें? Of course it is going to be the A option, IMF and World Bank, because we know that these are the institutions that were formed in the year 1944 through the Bretton Woods Conference, right? So it is the product of that. So A is going to be the correct answer to this question. Now moving on to question number 20, which is regarding GDP and GNP. So please mark your answers. Read the options and mark your answers. So last 10 questions are left. तो जल्दी जल्दी निपटा दो and then you can revise for your exam that is on 25th for question number 20. Take your time. Question number 20. Nilesh is saying B. What about others? सबने बी बोल दिया. मुझे ये समझ नहीं आ रही कि अगर आपको ये पता है कि ऑप्शन नंबर 3 इज द स्टेटमेंट नंबर 3 इज द इनकरेक्ट स्टेटमेंट, तो स्टेटमेंट नंबर 4 को आप करेक्ट कैसे बोल सकते हो? एक बार स्टेटमेंट नंबर 4 ध्यान से पढ़ो. रीड इट केयरफुली. ध्यान से पढ़ो क्वेश्चन स्टेटमेंट नंबर 4, बिकॉज ये दोनों लॉजिकली एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड है. समझ में आया? आर यू गेटिंग इट? सब लोगों ने बी लिख दिया आंसर. रीड द स्टेटमेंट 4 केयरफुली. डू यू वांट मी टू ड्रॉप हिंट्स? ये सब्सट्रैक्ट होता है. रीड इट केयरफुली. या सब्ट्रैक्ट आएगा. What is going to come over here? What happens in case of GNP? हाँ, आप समझे नीलेश? A is going to be the answer to this question. सब्सट्रैक्ट नहीं होता, ये ऐड होता है. इसे मैंने बोला क्वेश्चन ध्यान से पढ़ो. वही मैं सोच रहा हूं कि यार आप लोग ये ऑप्शन तो बिल्कुल सही बोल रहे हो कि यार ये वाला स्टेटमेंट इनकरेक्ट है, बिकॉज ओवर हियर व्हाट हैपेंस, जीएनपी इज हायर देन जीडीपी इन दिस केस. बट ये हायर तभी होगा ना बिकॉज इस रैशनल की वजह से, because net factor income from abroad is added as a part of it, but यहाँ तो subtract लिखा है, right? So that is not the correct statement. So based on that, A is going to be the answer to this question, right? So that is why. I hope it is clear to everyone that why A is going to be the answer, because when we talk about GNP, what GNP does, GNP basically adds the net factor income from abroad. ऐसे लिखूं मैं इसको अगर, GNP what it does, it basically adds the net factor income from abroad with GDP, right? This is what it does, right? So it does not subtract it, add हो जाता है इसमें, तो इसलिए GNP हायर आता है इस केस में, right? So that is why यहाँ subtract लिखा है. This is going to be the incorrect statement. So A is going to be the answer to this question. बाकी तो आपको पता ही है कि ये तो बहुत ही बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन है, ठीक है. आपके इकोनॉमिक्स का पहला चैप्टर है इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ, ठीक है. तो डेफिनेशन तो सबको पता है जीडीपी और जीएनपी की इस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे, so ये तो ऑफ कोर्स करेक्ट है. बट द ट्विस्टेड पार्ट वाज ओवर हियर. बट नाउ आई होप इट इज क्लियर टू यू. सब्सट्रैक्ट नहीं, ऐड आएगा, right? So A is going to be the answer. Question number 21. Which of the following regarding the DPSP in the Indian Constitution are correct? Which of the following statements regarding the DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy in the Indian Constitution are correct? So the first statement says that DPSPs are justiciable, meaning they are enforceable by the courts in India. ये तो गलत बात है, ठीक है, क्योंकि DPSPs we know they are just guidelines, right? And it is up to the states when they are going to implement it, but not enforceable by the courts. Courts force नहीं कर सकता, right? So that is the point. So ये तो इसको काट दो. उसके बाद it aims to establish social and economic democracy, right? This is true because it aims to establish social and economic democracy. But अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं फंडामेंटल राइट, तो फंडामेंटल राइट्स कौन से डेमोक्रेसी प्रमोट करते हैं? दे प्रमोट द पॉलिटिकल डेमोक्रेसी, ठीक है. ये डिफरेंस छोटा सा ही है, बट पता नहीं आपके एग्जाम में पूछा जाएगा या नहीं, थोड़ा डिटेल्ड है ये. बट द पॉइंट इज दैट फंडामेंटल राइट दे डील विद द पॉलिटिकल डेमोक्रेसी, बट जो डीपीएसपी है दे डील विद सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक डेमोक्रेसी, राइट? सो दैट्स अ वेरी I would say that's a difference between these two things in context to democracy. Then DPSP include provisions related to promotion of international peace and security. हाँ, DPSP में एक ऐसा एक principle है जो international peace and security की बात करता है. Then it says DPSPs have been borrowed from the British Constitution. No, they have not been borrowed from the British Constitution. They have been borrowed from the Irish Constitution, right? तो ये भी गलत है और ये भी गलत है. तो B is going to be the correct answer, right? And many of you have given the correct answer only. ठीक है. Question number 22. Which of the following statements correctly match the social movements with their respective founders or prominent leaders? Which of the following statements correctly match the social movements with their respective founders or prominent leaders? So question number 22. So if you talk about चिपको मूवमेंट, ठीक है, चिपको मूवमेंट के लिए कौन थे? इट वॉज नॉट मेधा पाटकर. मेधा पाटकर वॉज बेसिकली फॉर नर्मदा बचाओ आंदोलन, राइट? तो ये चीज तो क्लियर है. तो दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द इनकरेक्ट वन. भूदान मूवमेंट की बात करें, यस इट वॉज इनिशिएटेड बाई I would say Vinoba Bhave, right? We know that, and it is for land distribution. It is a very old movement. So ये तो सही है. सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट मूवमेंट, यस, इट वाज बाय ईवी सोमा नाइकर. व्हाई? टू प्रमोट द सोशल जस्टिस, सोशल इक्वालिटी प्रमोट करने के लिए. द कास्ट बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन दैट वाज देयर इन द साउथ इंडिया, राइट, सो दैट वाज प्रमोटेड. तो ये भी सही है. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट नर्मदा बचाओ आंदोलन, इट वाज स्पेयर हेडेड बाय सुंदरलाल भगोना. ये गलत है बिकॉज सुंदरलाल भगोना इज रिलेटेड टू चिपको मूवमेंट. He led the Chipko movement, right? Not the Narmada Bachao Andolan. Over here we have the Medha Patkar, right? So based on that, ये दोनों गलत होंगे. 2 and 3, 2 and 3. B is going to be the answer to this question, right? Yes. So question number 23 now. In the Union Budget 2025 to 26, the government announced a comprehensive multi-sectoral program specifically aimed at making migration a choice, not a necessity. What is the name of this flagship program? What is the name of this flagship program? So this is related to budget. Since this theme of this certain type of program, it was aligning with the social issues, तो मुझे लगा कि यार ये ऐड कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, आपके एग्जाम से रिलेटेड और इजी भी है. ये पढ़ा ही होगा आपने करंट अफेयर में. So question number 23. Alright, so if we talk about question number 23, the correct answer to this question is going to be the B option, which is Rural Prosperity and Resilience Program. So basically over here, you know, this in the budget, it was said that the migration should be a choice and not a necessity, because this, if you talk about this program basically focuses upon addressing the issue of underemployment. The issue of underemployment that is there in the agriculture sector, right? And what it does basically as a part of the agriculture sector, or you can say the rural sector, what it does, it basically talks about promotion of skilling, right? Promotion of, I would say, investment, right? All such sort of things, promotion of technology, so that these people that are there who live in the rural area, so they are able to get the opportunities in these areas only, and they don't have to get migrated to the urban areas because of, in order to fulfill their necessity. Even if they are migrating, it is because of choice, not because of necessity. मजबूरी में ना जाए, अपनी मर्जी से जाए. That is the intent behind it, right? So B is going to be the correct answer to this question. Moving on to question number 24. Sorry. Question number 25. Which state has the highest national average of workers employed under MGNREGA as of late 2025 data? A. UP, B. Bihar, C. Rajasthan, D. West Bengal, or E. Odisha? Highest national average of workers employed under MGNREGA. Because migration is a part of your syllabus, right? So that's why these type of things we have added. So basically the answer to this question, या तो ये आता है या तो नहीं आता. So the correct answer is Rajasthan. ठीक है, तो राजस्थान है. That is going to be the answer to this question. The highest number of average workers employed under MGNREGA. So C is going to be the correct answer. Question number 26. Thomas Malthus, in his theory of population growth, put forward several propositions regarding the relationship between population and food supply. Now consider the following statements based upon that. तो बता दो regarding the Malthus theory. Mark your answers. Then we will see the explanation part. Question number 26. What is going to be the answer? Nilesh is saying C. बाकी लोग भी बता दो अपना आंसर for question number 26. Lohita is saying B. Okay, so let us talk about it. So basically when we talk about Malthus theory, it basically talks about two things. The first thing is the food supply, or you can say agriculture sustenance that is there, right? And the second thing is basically the population. Now Malthus theory says that if you talk about the population basically increases in the geometric progression, right? Or you can say at the exponential rate. But when we talk about the food supply increases at the arithmetic progression only, that is at arithmetic rate. Arithmetic rate क्या होता है? जैसे कि देखो 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and so on. Geometric या फिर exponential rate क्या होता है? It basically means 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, right? 64, 128 and so on. So that is geometric progression. So at a certain point of time, Malthus says what is going to happen, this population that is there, the overall population that is there, it is going to exceed the food supply, right? Because of the increase in the population at the exponential rate. And what is going to happen? Then there will be situation of, then in that country or in that region, there will be situation of famines, right? There will be situation of mass deaths as a part of that society, right? And these famines that are there, these type of famines, these type of conclusions that he is pointing out, he calls these kind of things, these kind of situations as a kind of positive checks. Positive checks from the side of whom? Positive checks from the side of the nature in order to maintain the balance, right? कि समाज का संतुलन बना रहे, दुनिया का संतुलन बना रहे with respect to resources, इसलिए ये फेमाइज ये पॉजिटिव चेक हो रहे हैं, राइट? क्योंकि पॉपुलेशन बहुत तेजी से बढ़ेगी बट फूड सप्लाई उतनी तेजी से नहीं बढ़ पाएगी, right? So that is what's stated by Malthus. So based on that, basically this point is the incorrect one because it says population arithmetic से बढ़ेगी. That is not true. It says food supply arithmetic से बढ़ेगी in the form of 2, 4, 8, 16, 12, right? And over here food supply is going to and the population is going to get increased by the geometric progression. So both of them are incorrect. ये दोनों reverse किए जाएंगे, right? If unchecked, population tends to double after 25 years. बिल्कुल सही. This is what that was stated. And the population growth is regulated through positive checks and preventive checks. तो यही वो steps हैं जो मैंने आपको बताए. So based on that, basically these two are the correct ones. So 3 or 4. So B is going to be the correct answer to this question, right? So I hope it is clear to everyone. Question number 27. The second stage, also known as the transition stage of the demographic transition model, is marked by significant changes in the population growth patterns. Which of the following describes the key characteristics of this stage? Which of the following describes the key characteristics of this stage, right? Which stage? Second stage. So please mark your answers. Yes. So we know that if we talk about this demographic transition model, right? So as a part of it, if we talk about the first stage, in first stage what happens कि birth rate और death rate दोनों stationary होते हैं. We call it high stationary because as a part of the graph, so both birth rate and the death rate, they are high and they are stationary. But in the second stage, what happens as the economy, as the country started progressing, right? So what is going to happen with industrialization? The country is going to establish different kind of, it is going to use the technology, right? And the healthcare ecosystem is going to get improved. The medical facilities are going to get improved. Because of this, what happens? The death rate start declining. Second transition में. But birth rate अभी भी high रहता है, right? Because people are still not using the contraceptives as a part of this type of population growth, as a part of this type of country that is going through this developmental phase, right? उसके बाद third phase आता है. Third phase में क्या होता है? Basically, as a part of the third phase, the birth rate, they also begin to fall, right? तो पहले death rate तो गिर ही रहा था, birth rate भी गिरने लग जाता है. Why birth rate starts falling? Because now people are getting the awareness. Now they have started using contraceptives. Now they have started getting into this family planning also sort of things. And earlier, if we talk about the pre-agriculture society, here people were producing more and more kids, right? ज़्यादा ज़्यादा बच्चे पैदा कर देते so that basically these kids can be used as the economic hands, right, for the agricultural economy. But now since the economy is becoming industrialized, right, and also the medical care is there, so the loss of life with respect to the kids, it has gone down because the birth rate has also, the death rate has also gone down. So because of this, what people now do, people start producing lesser number of kids, right? तो उससे क्या होता है, जब लोगों को पता लगता है कि अब बच्चे की डेथ होने की प्रोबेबिलिटी कम है, so what they start do, they start producing lesser kids and the birth rate falls down, right? And eventually in the next stage what happens, they become stationary, right, which is something we call as the low stationary phase. ठीक है, ये फोर्थ स्टेज होती है. तो हमसे क्या पूछा, हमसे सेकंड स्टेज पूछी है. तो सेकंड स्टेज में मैंने क्या बताया, बर्थ रेट हाई होता है लेकिन डेथ रेट गिर जाता है because of these type of factors. So based on that, what is going to be the answer? Let me see it. Birth rates. Yes, the birth rates fall sharply while, sorry, the death rates fall sharply while the birth rates remain high. So B is going to be the correct answer to this question. ठीक है. So as I can see it in the chat box that most of you are given, I would say सबने सही आंसर दिया. ठीक है, regarding this. So yes, B is going to be the correct answer. Now moving on to question number 28. The rate of natural increase is an important demographic measure used to assess population change. What does the rate of natural increase of population represents? What does the rate of natural increase of a population represent? So question बहुत easy है ये, but options थोड़े confusing हो सकते हैं. So please read the options carefully. Time ले लो, but गलत आंसर मत देना. Yes, so mark your answers. Yes. So question number 28, what it is asking, it is saying the rate of natural increase. So when we talk about the rate of natural increase, right? This rate of natural increase measures what? It basically measures the growth of the population, and because of basically the natural factors, right? Which is primarily nothing, which is the birth rate and the death rate, right? So when we calculate this natural rate increase, right? The rate of natural increase, it is nothing but it is the difference between the crude birth rate that is there and the crude death rate. राइट, सो दैट इज समथिंग दैट इज गोइंग टू बी द आंसर. इफ यू सी द फर्स्ट पॉइंट, ये तो रेशियो की बात कर रहे हैं, ये रेशियो नहीं होता, राइट? ये रेशियो की बात कर रहे हैं, दैट टोटल नंबर ऑफ बर्थ डिवाइडेड बाय टोटल नंबर ऑफ डेथ, ये रेशियो नहीं होता, इट इज अ डिफरेंस, राइट? इफ यू सी द पॉइंट नंबर 3, द नंबर ऑफ इमिग्रेंट्स माइनस द नंबर ऑफ इमिग्रेंट्स, राइट? सो दिस इज नॉट द नेचुरल इंक्रीज, राइट? नेचुरल इंक्रीज का मतलब क्या होता है कि लोग पैदा हो रहे हैं और लोगों की डेथ हो रही है, बट द डिस्प्लेसमेंट ऑफ पीपल फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर, that is not considered as a national phenomena. So migration is not considered as a part of the rate of natural increase, right? तो इसलिए ये आंसर नहीं होगा. That is a justification. The percentage of the population below 15 years of age, ठीक है, तो ये भी कुछ ऐसे सेंस नहीं बनती है, तो एज स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, राइट? द टोटल पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ इंक्लूडिंग माइग्रेशन, अब फिर से यह माइग्रेशन आ गई, मींस डिस्प्लेसमेंट ऑफ पीपल आ गया, तो ये भी आगे नेशनल इंक्रीज नहीं है, तो इसको भी आप एलिमिनेट कर सकते हो. सो बी इज गोइंग टू बी द करेक्ट आंसर. ठीक है, तो क्वेश्चन नंबर 29 चलते हैं. Under the RRBs, the issued capital of the RRB subscribed to the central government, state government and the sponsored bank in which ratio? It is going to be in which ratio? The center, the state and the sponsored bank. Very easy question. ये मैंने आपको पहले ही बताया था. Anu, is it clear to you कि E उसका आंसर क्यों नहीं होगा? Why migration is not going to be there? Because it is not considered as the natural increase, right? Okay. So question number 29, yes, ये तो बहुत easy question है, ठीक है? Of course, A is going to be the answer. ये हमने already देख भी लिया है. आगे चलते हैं, last question. The Rural Infrastructure Development Fund maintained by NABARD is primarily funded through which of the following? The Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, ये करंट अफेयर में भी था अभी कुछ टाइम पहले. So the Rural Infrastructure Development Fund maintained by NABARD is primarily funded through which of the following? Yes, mark your answers. This is the last question. Question number 30. Yes, so regarding question number 30, C is going to be the correct answer. So if you talk about this Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, right, it is maintained by NABARD. And first of all, what is the purpose of this fund? This fund is basically created in order to finance different kind of rural infrastructure projects, right? What type of rural infrastructure projects? For example, the projects related to irrigation, it can be regarding the roads, regarding the buildings, right, bridges, all such sort of things in the rural areas. Now, if you talk about the source of funding, when it comes to this rural infrastructure development fund, the source of funding is nothing but it is the PSL contributions, right? It is a PSL contributions from the commercial banks. So that is something that is going to be there. If there is a kind of domestic commercial bank, right, that is falling short of their PSL targets, so what they can do, they can basically fund to this rural infrastructure development fund. They can contribute to this RIDF, and this RIDF amount can be used for the similar type of purpose for which that PSL target was there, right? Primarily for the development of the rural infrastructure projects. So that is the purpose of that. तो मान लो commercial bank को 40% अपना PSL target रखना होता है, but उन्होंने 35 किया, अब 5% बच गया क्योंकि उनको वो loans ऐसे borrowers नहीं मिल पाए जहां पर वो ऐसा इस तरह का लोन दे सकते हैं कि उनका 5% टारगेट फुलफिल हो जाता बिकॉज ऑफ एनी रीजन. सो व्हाट दे आर गोइंग टू डू, दिस 5% दे कैन नॉट से, वो ये नहीं बोलेंगे कि मेरा 40% में से 5% बच गया, ये मैं अपने पास रखूंगा. नो, दिस 5% व्हाट दे कैन डू, दे कैन सेंड इट टू RIDF, और ये जो RIDF का पैसा है ये मैंने आपको बताया रूरल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स को फाइनेंस करने में यूज होगा, राइट. सो दैट इज हाउ बेसिकली दिस funding works. So I hope it is clear to you. So now we are done with this session. The PDF of the same is going to get shared as a part of our Telegram channel, so you can download it from there. So I hope it is clear to you, right? So let me just see the chat box if there is any question or something before I end the session. So all the best for your exam. अच्छे से करना, ठीक है. एंड नीलेश, ऑल द बेस्ट टू यू. स्पेशली आपको बहुत टाइम से देख रहा हूँ, आप बहुत सारी मैराथन्स अटेंड करते हो. सो आई होप कि यू विल मेक इट, एंड I will be very happy for you, right? So, and yes, all the best to others also, of course, no doubt regarding that. And that is it, right? So if you have any confusion, any doubt, तो कभी भी contact कर सकते हो, right? As a part of this, hello@edutap.co.in. So thank you so much and all the best.